And we're officially live for another Sunday stream. Welcome, everyone, either listening now or in the future, to another episode of Lore Ramblings. This is Adam.
And I'm Tech Priest, and we are back with Dark Airs again. This is a 3 in a row for our streams.
Yeah, it's mainly because I was struggling to figure out which thing to really cover. It was going to either be this, more Robotic Age, or World of Cinnabar. But we kind of thought that the third one had to kind of be held off because it is a journey that needs to be recorded and edited and cherished.
Yeah, this is one of those things though that I kind of find an interesting okay sort of setting.
That's not good because I've noticed a trend with Changeling, and this is a Changeling setting, Grimdark era, which is early 1800s Changeling. Now, the problem I've had with every Changeling that we've covered but the Three Kingdoms period one is they're either the secondary part of the period, and they're just not as interesting as the other guys in that period.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Three Kingdoms of Darkness, well, Changeling Animu Dynasty Warriors is
It
bullshit. That's
it
great.
it plays the heroic kind of more lighthearted element, which is
Yeah.
not something you think of with Chronicles of Darkness, but it's not as dreary as World, so they
Yeah.
can get
And I
away
mean,
with it.
I mean, if you lean into the swashbuckler aspects of Lily Saber and Thorn, you can kind of get that.
The problem
Is
is that it relies pretty much solely on the works of Alexandre Dumas, a writer from the 1800s.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, the Three Musketeers are cool and all, but you can only do that so many times. You can only foil Cardinal Richelieu's evil plots so many times
yeah,
until it gets
and
kind of
then
dull.
and then in Vampire in London,
Requiem for Regina, yeah.
it just doesn't work really
It
that
literally
super well.
it literally is the afterthought.
It's the afterthought section. Like, oh wait, right,
Yeah, we need to include the other half of the spooks.
yeah,
But Grimdark era, they I know what they're going for. This is actually a really good time period to
yes,
place the Chronicles of Darkness because this is probably the most insane 50 years that we've ever experienced as a race so far.
this is the change. This is basically just during the Napoleonic era, towards the end of it, towards our good old
1800 to 1850 is
yeah.
perhaps the greatest change of society, civilization, culture, governance, and philosophy that we've ever had.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at. This is an interesting, weird time period from the perspective of even the people inside of it.
Evil is also not anything small or close to home, and not the worst, otherwise no one could grow accustomed to it. Jacob Grimm.
Otherwise, one could grow accustomed to it. So it's not anything small, close to home, not the worst. Otherwise, one could grow accustomed to it. So the interesting thing is that this is a time period in Europe that is undergoing rapid changes,
Well,
and
it's kind of different, actually. You have rapid change and a rabid psychotic desire to keep to the old days.
there's not just that. There's a rapid series of changes that happens kind of like right
The
all
genie
together.
comes out of the bottle. They can't quite contain it, so they have to create a new status quo.
Yes.
The French monarchy dies. The First Republic is born. Does many upturns a lot of Europe because of their reforms to their army. France is able to fight all of Europe due to their reforms towards its army, despite being an unstable nation at the time. And then
Despite being in an active civil war, I might add.
and then afterwards it becomes an empire and manages to dominate Europe for a brief period before it all collapses. Because of this, the genies of nationalism and the Enlightenment thoughts such as the right of representations and the rights to freedom of speech and liberty unleashed throughout all of Europe.
The big
Originally,
one, though,
it was just in certain circles and in experiments in the United States.
is the nationalism genie, and it's felt nowhere as keenly but Germany.
There's also a second part though, because for when there's action, there's reaction. And ultimately, Napoleon lost. The old powers, the old money, the old families won. And they tried to cram that genie back into that fucking bottle.
They did, which would
Not
result
only
in an
that, but
explosion.
they all made an agreement after this war because at this point, other than the 30 Years' War, this was the bloodiest one they've ever faced. Let's avoid this happening again by making an interlocked series of alliances that crush anyone who disagrees with us or causes shit. The great I forget the term for it. The
Congress of Europe?
Congress of Europe, Congress of Vienna,
Yeah,
because
that's
it
the one
was
that
the
establishes it.
crux point. It was the brainchild of both the British, but it's also mainly
And
of Metternich, the arch conservative.
Metternich and Talleyrand.
Yeah. The rise of industry, nationalism, death of the Spanish Empire, and the monarchies of the last 300 years. Right and wrong, Impsit. The first 50 years is not quite the death of all monarchies. It is the death of the old order, the birth of a new one, the rise of tensions, the rise for glory, and the nucleations of the modern democratic system, as well as the birth of not just standard socialism, because socialism is an entire swath of ideologies, but also just the seed of Marxism, which culminates
The
in the springtime of nations.
Yes, the specter haunting Europe was not communism; it was the French Revolution. When that is referenced in a speech, I want to say in the 1840s or 50s. The specter haunting Europe was not communism. The specter haunting Europe was the French Revolution.
And it's because of these changes the world of humans is rapidly changing. Not only are ideas being spoken about, a lot more people are capable of reading. Information's coming a lot quicker. Technology has made things easier. For example, cotton used to be a highly labor-intensive force. It still is, but now it's become a lot more amenable with the cotton gin. A variety of other threshing machines have been invented. The steam engine has allowed us to finally move just carts of material from mines, but also gives rise to the first locomotives. Transportation changes. Communication networks get better with the rise of Morse code. Literally, the jump from 1800 to 1850 in some ways was as dramatic as 1850 to 1900, if not more, almost more so in
Actually,
some
from
ways.
1900 to 1950, I'd say.
1900 to
Like,
1950, like it almost matches.
yeah, because the 1900s to 1950s sees the rise of, manned flight, the automotive industry, the start of modern communications and networks with radio
And we're
and
not
all
even
this other stuff.
talking about weapons, which 1800 to 1850, you see the rise of entirely new systems of firing mechanisms, the beginnings of the first breech loader bolt action rifle,
Reliable breech loaders. They don't have cartridges like
the first
modern
modern
cartridges
military
quite yet.
uniform came to Russia during this time.
There's also a standardization of a lot of things, of language especially. France is one of the main key people that one of the big reforms during the French Revolution was that French as a language was standardized. This was big because every region of France had their own regional variation of French, which caused headaches for everyone trying to write it down.
Which you can
Be-
see nowadays in modern Italy, fun fact.
yes, Italy has always had this issue because Italy is Italy, and
And
Italy,
unlike
well,
France, Italy didn't have a lot of time to do this. But anyway, a lot of changes happened, and this is just to the world of humanity in the Chronicles of Darkness.
not only that, but you also see with all this is how stories are being told and communicated changes a lot.
Not
Because
just that, but entire mythologies were invented wholesale. Like the concept of a headless huntsman has constantly been in European legend for a while, particularly in Germanic and Celtic myth. But
yes,
around this time, you had people like Washington Irving who took
Who
the old headless
codified
huntsman.
it?
Well, no, he took the
yes,
headless huntsman, and that's where the headless horseman of the Sleepy Hollow came from.
He put a
yes.
new spin on it.
And he was not the only one. The most famous of them are the Brothers Grimm.
The Brothers Grimm created about 50 different categories of just stories. Then they categorized further by characters, arcs, motivations. Because part of what they were trying to do was find the story, the first story that all these other stories came from. Um, To some degree, they made a lot of assumptions that have proven to be false, but in other cases, they've been able to quite accurately track regional folklore down to very, very old stories. Because one of the ideas behind this is that burgeoning national movement. The idea of a common German identity is one of the main drivers behind the creation of Grimm's fairy tales.
The Grimm's fairy tales is kind of the equivalent of Mother Goose stories from the previous century, which was what the French did. Mother
Yeah.
Goose was their brothers Grimm from 100 years prior. Also, hi Randall.
Wait, Mother's Goose was a real person?
She was a
Yes.
French noblewoman.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No. Mother Gosson. Or something like that. Basically, it was a pen name of a French noblewoman
Who
who
collected
collected fairy tales and children's stories.
from around the French monarchy.
Yeah.
Huh.
So she'd grab things that children being told by their nursemaids and that she'd heard when traveling and things like that, and wrote them down. And so they spread that way too.
Also,
And
Impsit. Oh no, we've seen non-Civil War conflicts. The Greek War of Independence comes to mind.
yep, the Greek War of Independence. There's the Polish War of Independence. That one doesn't go
Two
as
of
well.
them. There's two of them.
Yeah. There's the Schleswig-Holstein War around this time period, I
It was
think.
a shooting war between Denmark and two of the German principalities. By the way, the Danish actually, I think they lost that one,
They did. They lost that one pretty hardcore.
which was pretty impressive because it wasn't a lot of Germans that unified in the fight. Like, yeah, they were paying German units, but not as many as you would have
It
thought.
was more over a small boundary state than anything else. The one of the other big aspects of this period and of this era is, especially around Germany, is that the big genie is out of the bottle. The Holy Roman Empire is fucking dead. It's not coming
Napoleon
back.
killed it.
Napoleon killed it, put a cork in it, put a screw in it. Everything's up for grabs. There's now another regional hegemony in Prussia. The idea of the Confederation of the Rhine fell apart basically once Napoleon's gone, but is still kind of a popular idea of standardization and all this and unity.
Which
And
Metternich and the Austrians, being the avatars of the old order that they are, were terrified of. And they tried to make, in a way, their own broken mirror of the Holy Roman Empire out of it.
yes, they did. It did not work out too well, mostly because it was very obviously designed to be dominated by Austria.
Well, it's partially that. There's actually another reason. The method that they did to create. Oh, go on.
This is the Austro-Hungarian Empire, right?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
Not until after 1848.
Okay.
1848, where
dinged by a
the
college
Hungarians
professor for
almost
that.
killed them.
I got dinged pretty bad by a college professor for that, for referring to them as that for like an entire paper, and he's
Nope,
like,
it
"No,
was-
they weren't that at this time. Please
They were
double
just
check
called
your
Austria.
sources."
It wasn't until Hungary revolted and Austria had to get help from Russia to murder them.
Which isn't the first time that the Russians have gone into Hungary and stopped a revolution.
Yeah.
Because Austria and Russia had one big solid agreement. They can't let this nationalism liberal shit spread.
Mostly because the Russians are terrified of anyone getting ahead of them in Europe, which has been a
Well,
constant.
also the Russians, all the powers and the autocrats and the nobles.
Yeah,
Russia
and they don't
being-
have any incentive to change it because they benefit from the order.
And Austria it knows what it is. It is
Austria's a fucking mess.
multi-ethnic empire. Now, here's the thing. Austria could have actually unified Germany. The problem was its mindset and focus.
Its mindset and focus.
It was reactionary.
It was focused
No.
on holding itself together, which meant it looked outside of the German sphere.
Yes.
It would always
Its main
be
focus
Austrian,
was the Balkans.
not German.
The Balkans, the Balkans, and the Balkans was the primary focus of the Austrians for the
God.
longest time.
Oh,
Because
God,
that was their border with the
why?
Ottomans. That's where they had expanded to over the centuries. That's where their natural ports was along the
Why
the
hasn't
Balkan
anybody
coast.
just walled off the Balkans? Just say, yeah, we're not. Nobody gets involved.
The Romans
there.
tried.
The Romans tried. The Ottomans kind of did by intentionally ignoring funding anything there, which is why it was the most backwards part of Europe. To give you an idea, at some by 1900, Albania was the most backwards nation in Europe. It still had feudal society and tribes. I'm not even
I fucking
kidding.
love Albania. I love Albania as a country because it's one of those countries where You think that it's they're just kind of bumpkins and you have no fucking clue. Just
well,
the
no,
absolute
like reading
insanity.
Albanian history, it's like something that somebody made up for a film to have, like, a shitty generic bad guy.
What
Oh
it
no,
feels
they're
like.
not the Russians we're fighting in this film. They're the Albanians. They live under an insane dictator who enslaves the population to build bunkers to defend from both the Soviets and the Americans because he's convinced they're all out
And
to
the
get him.
Yugoslavians.
And the Yugoslavians.
But it's like that. But to give you some fun clues about Albania, I know we're sidetracking. It's kind of the fault of what it's going to focus on. Changeling, I've noticed, it relies heavily on what it's working with. And Dark Eras, this is one of its few flaws I've noticed. Most of the time they fucked it up. But to give you an idea, back to Albania, because it's a lot more interesting than what we're probably going to read, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Albania was so fucking backwards, it had two legal systems. The more modern of which is the old Ottoman legal system, which was not modified since like the 1800s. In 1930.
I mean, there's worse.
That's in the civilized southern parts of Albania.
Oh no.
In the north, there's the Lech Code, the Code of Lech, which was made in the 1200 ADs by an Albanian chieftain who created a codified set of laws to avoid the vendetta blood feuds that the tribes were dealing with at the time, and essentially give some basic form of governance to an ungovernable people.
Wow.
Half of Albania was still using a legal code from the fucking 1300s.
It's almost as bad as France in the 1700s. Almost. That was the reason
I don't
why
know,
I'd say
Tech. They were using that code until like the 1920s.
yes, the main reason why I say the French one is worse is because there's so much more scale to it. The French legal code of the 1700s is one of those interesting nightmares.
Yeah, but I mean, then again, there's also standards of the era. Everywhere else was also a hellish ooga booga nightmare.
You think that's bad? Here's a quote. More is known about the Zulu kingdoms of Africa than there is about the interior of Albania. That was written in 1900.
Wait, is it being farcical?
No,
no.
People knew more about the African kingdoms than they did about how the Albanians lived. It was a land of mystery and myth.
Well, I mean, Europeans actually cared about Africa at that time.
That's why.
They didn't care about Albania.
No, the
Nobody
Italians
cares
did.
about Albania.
The Italians
Not
did.
even God.
The Italians did. Oh, from Imsit, something else to add to the Christian religious revival in English-speaking countries. Oh no, it was mostly America and to a lesser degree in England. Not so much in the other parts because, well, Reform Judaism comes around in 1845. And, there were major movements that arose in Islam at the time.
There was one that ended up killing China Gordon.
Yeah. There was a messianic branch of Shia Islam that came around it's not quite at this time period, it's a little bit later, about the 1860s, which proclaimed that there would be a Mahdi to come at the turn of the century, which led to a literal empire in Sudan that at its peak was fighting the Ethiopians, British, and French in a 3v1 war, and it took 20 years to put them down.
Cool.
And they were allied with have you ever heard the term whirling dervishes? They allied with a Somali Islamic messianic state similar to them.
Cool.
Which was a mystical Sufi state of martial artists.
History is fucking insane. Basically.
It's glorious. By the way, that's not even the craziest Christian religious revival. That goes to the Taiping Rebellion, but we're not going into that. Otherwise, it'd be just nothing but China. Grim Dark Era.
So, as they mention here, the fact of the Grimm's fairy tales is that before this, there was a lot more regional variation in Germany about what your things that go bump the night can do.
Like, to give you an idea, there were 3 or 4 different Pied Pipers.
Yeah. Then there's of course all the variations on Krampus,
Oh yeah.
including Schwartz Pete, who we're not going to get into here. That's one I'm not touching with a 12-foot pole.
Oh come on, he's just covered in coal dust, dude.
He is, but there was definitely a push for a
Look,
little
just
while.
because he looks like Mr. Popo doesn't mean there's nothing wrong with him.
there was a push for a little while in some parts to make him actually black, which okay, but still.
But yeah, the Fae. So the way the Fae work in Changeling the Lost are they're tied to the local spooks and kooks legends, which means actually the Fae can literally alien abduct you to Arcadia.
Yes, they do.
They can literally
There's
look like gray aliens and abduct you in a
yes,
fucking flying saucer to Arcadia.
yes, they
Because
will.
they
They
take
do
what's
that.
there. They take what's
Yeah.
there.
Fae are in many ways reflections of the stories of mankind. So as the stories change, so do they. They're stuck in their own narrative.
So
basically.
if a guy's crying that he got AS'd by Bigfoot, like that one video, that could have actually been a Fae.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Brothers Grimm, what they've done is they codified a series of stories, and because of that, the way that the gentry, and not just the gentry, but the changelings themselves are represented change.
Yes.
And another thing is the changelings, remember, they kind of walk in the background of humanity, and due to industrialization, the hinterland's becoming a lot less hinterland. It's actually becoming a lot more settled, even if it's still very rural.
Which is good for them because it means that they can link up more. But it's also not good for them because it means the Fae can hunt them a bit easier.
Unless you live in Galicia, which was the poorest part of Austria-Hungary. Or Austrian Empire. Do you want to know the level of quality of life of Galicia during this time period?
I really don't. I want to get into the next page.
They on average had between 5 to 10 children, and only 2 of them would live.
Oh no!
It was the poorest part of Europe outside of Albania.
Sounds like the perfect place to set a game. Just Bumpkinsville, Galicia.
You're hiding in Galicia there because all the children will die. Therefore, the Fae have nothing to abduct. It's perfect.
Well, or
Big brain strategies here.
Because it's the poorest. No. All those missing children, they don't die. That's just what the census records say. They get abducted. Because in Galicia is where the old ways still hold sway or whatever. I don't know. Some
So,
maybe have
because
it be
the areas that are more backwards, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So,
I don't know
like
what I'm
Europe,
saying.
as it's tottering between liberal revolution and the arch-conservative reactionary powers, so do the courts. Changeling life is changing, which means that who's in power changes, and how that power works is massively changing. Courts are the court system has been around for a while at this point. It's been strongly established, but yeah, because of the change in legends, the way that they're getting hunted, and their own powers are changing. And not all Fae like that, and not all changelings like this.
Yeah.
So you see a smaller scale Europe happening in the different freeholds.
There's actually an expansion book for Victorian era Changeling the Lost, set for like London and all that.
But one of the things they warn you about in the Grim Dark era is children are very commonly involved.
Oh boy.
It's because a lot of the Grimm fairy tales involve children coming to either very lucky survivals or dark ends.
The nature of a lot of the fairy tales too can be to modern sensibilities quite shocking or even offensive.
Yeah, like Little Red Riding Hood doesn't live in the initial telling. She doesn't survive.
She gets eaten.
Yeah, because the original intent was don't talk to fucking strangers or you'll die.
Yeah, well,
Death was kind of a lot more omnipresent back then.
I mean, if back in the day you broke a leg and the leg got funny, you weren't going to survive the medicine. Because back then, to give you an idea on how ooga booga backwards medicine was, we didn't know that you were supposed to wash our fucking hands until like the No, not even the 18. We washed our instruments in the 1860s and 70s.
Yeah.
Reluctantly. Not everyone did it. It didn't become accepted in common practice until like the 1890s.
You need a nice good caking
You just
of
need
manure
cocaine.
on your instruments. It makes the wound heal better.
Doctors didn't wear rubbly gloves or wash their hands until until World War One.
Yeah. Yeah.
Medicine is fucking terrifying.
We still used fucking leeches during this time period.
I mean, we still do use leeches today occasionally.
Yeah,
It's
but
just that,
but not for
But,
not for
like-
the real reasons.
yeah.
This was to rebalance your humors because you have too much sanguine nature, which means we need to leech you.
You got ghosts in your blood.
So we
Yeah.
need the leech to eat them.
No. That's not what you use the leeches for. You use cocaine for the ghosts in your blood. Just
Yeah.
straight up unfiltered cocaine.
Of course, I mean, turn of the century medicine probably regressed because by then they discovered radium, which they thought was a fucking miracle cure.
Oh yeah,
Radium, yeah.
radium.
Radium.
Oh god.
There was a guy.
Radium water. It tastes delicious.
Did you know that the CEO of that company was so radioactive upon his death that they had to bury him in a lead-lined box, and it's rumored that he's still radioactive to this day?
I didn't know that,
Like,
but that makes
he
complete
becomes
sense.
his corpse becomes safe background radiation, I think, after another several hundred years.
Yeah.
Because-
So first off,
So the theme
The-
and mood.
theme is a change and transformation. It's this book has continued to spread, and Changelings spread along with it. Ends up kind of running. I guess you could say it kind of ends up running rampant. Like the changes are coming, and nothing's going to stop them.
There are some that are actively fighting as hard as they can because it would fuck over their prerogative or power. There are some
Yes.
gentry that are annoyed that the game's rules are being changed.
Because they oftentimes had made the rules.
That's what happens when you deal with a group of people that don't understand things like death, time, or
Basic human
morality.
decency.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, they might actually have to, not just be able to just, yeet you into the stratosphere because you
They
said
are
something
from a
bad.
realm where rules are a suggestion, not a
Yes.
not
Now-
a requirement.
Yeah.
Now, this is creating rules they have to follow, and they fucking hate it.
Although not all of the gentry, the horrible Cthulhu monsters hate it.
Not
Some
all
of
of
them
them.
actually find it real fun because it makes it more challenging.
Yes. Because now they can't just go to a different location and fuck with someone in a different way. They gotta play by a different rule book, all that sort of stuff. But that's also the other next bit of it is fear of the unknown. Because imagine, if you will, you're used to the old story, and suddenly this pops up and says, "No, actually, you die."
Yeah, like this new device that you never heard of. Like, no, the crow of this duck, the quack of this duck, can
It's
kill
now
you.
lethal to you. Yeah, you're now killed by quacking ducks. Why? Because this one region in Germany said so.
Okay, so like in your region of middle southern Germany, you were not killed by ducks, you were scared off by chickens, right?
Yeah.
But this other region in Germany, like further north, the quack of the duck is fatal, and roosters make them run in fear. And that's what the Brothers Grimm took for their story. And now it's spreading throughout Germany because they're like, yes, we are German, we are people. We're not speed bumps in the road of Europe for conquerors no more. Because of that, more people are believing that. So now you die from duck quacks, and you're angry because getting killed by a duck is the lamest thing ever.
It's stuff like that, yeah. Like the nature is changing, and the unknown is like, when does it stop changing? Like, how chaotic is this gonna get?
Yeah, for all you know, they might make another book.
Not only that, they might make a third or fourth book about something completely different and fuck you that way.
So the inspirational media they select: Grimm's fairy tales, no shit. Songs of Innocence and Experience from William Blake. The
Hegel.
works Hegelian dialectics, baby.
They tell you to read
God.
Hegelian dialectics because the Brothers Grimm definitely read it and used it for some of their categorization and things like that.
Yeah, the concept of via argumentation, you get the idea synthesized and one continues onward using the best of the others that it conflicts with.
Yes. So
Oh, hey, the
the
picture
idea,
of Dorian Gray. That's like my favorite Oscar Wilde story.
yeah, they do. Notably, Oscar Wilde was imprisoned for this.
Yeah?
Mostly because what he wrote about Dorian Gray doing was very shocking to the sensibilities of Victorian England.
Fun fact: he eventually escaped prison to hide out in Sicily for a bit. I think he died there.
Yeah. Most famous gay Irishman of all time.
And he died in mafia-controlled Sicily. How embarrassing!
I mean, there's worse places to die as a gay Irishman. I mean, like,
True. To give you an idea, Palermo at the time. So one of the saddest things in the world you can go to is go to any Italian city that had strong mafia ties, so southern Italy and Sicily, and then look back in the history books to see what the city looked like in the 1900s. So many beautiful buildings that were destroyed by Allied bombing in World War II, and so many of them were destroyed in disgusting fucking scam land grabs by the mafia. It is actually depressing.
yeah.
If you're a fan of architecture, especially in Sicily, where you not only had the Norman architecture, the
Yeah, the
Renaissance
Arabian, yeah,
architecture,
the Roman. It's a
Arabian,
fucking
Roman, and even Byzantine Greek.
yes. It's a giant conflux of
And a good
all these
chunk of
really
them
cool.
were demolished for land speculation.
Yeah. It's really makes you mad.
Film Eraserhead.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it.
That's a weird one, but
Well, wait. Because Eraserhead is industrialized, this means I can play a gnome factory owner and see how many children I can sacrifice to feed the coal machine.
you're joking. You're fucking joking, but that's an actual thing you can do.
Yes!
You're because
The coal quota must be met.
Well,
Are we
no,
turning the Albanians into fuel?
to give you an idea, remember one of the Grimm's fairy tales involves a gnome named Rumpelstiltskin who could make these many things happen. But he requires certain contracts, like a goblin does. So you can make contracts to parents like, oh yes, your family will be well afforded for in exchange for your child to work in my factory, and then you don't tell them about the part where they're sacrificed to the living boiler machine,
It's
which
also a fey creature that you're using to keep it away from the freehold. Yeah, you're a dirty privateer, buddy. You're sacrificing children to the Fae.
Okay, now I'm interested.
Changeling the
Yeah.
Lost is a very it is if you took Shrek and made it like the Dunwich Horror. Where
Wait,
you
can I play an ogre?
Yeah.
I
That
wanna,
is an
Ogre is one of the
actual thing.
primary classes.
I I want to settle a swamp in Florida.
You
That's an
could do that,
actual
yes.
thing, yeah.
I mean, one of the default setting for Changeling, the original book, was Miami. So yeah, you could be a swamp ogre.
In terms of television, 4400, which I've never seen.
Video games Rule of Rose, never heard of it.
Looks like a small independent game, which is fair.
Yeah, and then The Path,
Which is a
which
Little
is
Red
a
Riding Hood retelling. It seems to be a walking simulator.
I mean, it's a walking simulator around the idea of if you break the rules, things go bad, which is very Changeling.
What has come before? So it starts in the middle of Napoleon's wild ride.
Yes, the Proto-German question based on German identity, and also the descent of anti-French propaganda.
Yeah, because Napoleon he took France and then managed to, because of his ego, throw away its chance to become the great power of Europe.
Yes, a lot of it is because of the sister republics kind of then becoming sister monarchies, when a lot of people were like, I kind of like the republic.
Yeah, because
The
he
Rep-
kept putting his brothers and cousins on seats, and some of them were okay, were relatively tolerated, but a lot of them
yeah,
weren't.
a lot of them weren't. And in some of the cases, it's like the it was working fine as a republic. Why change it?
Or
You know?
alternatively, our monarchy was working with you, like in Spain's case. Why did you
And
kick
then
him
you
out?
just, yeah. I mean, part of that was because of the succession crisis and a bunch of other just
Well, no, there
complete
wasn't a
insanity
succession
there.
crisis in Spain for another 20 years. Because remember, Ferdinand, while he only had a daughter, like he wasn't that old at the time. He was mostly just kicked out because Napoleon thought that the British would get him on to side with the Portuguese to stab him in the back. And in a fit of hubris, kind of threw a war at them that was kind of unneeded.
That's true.
Mainly because at the time he had the ear and support of. Oh wait, no, I think there was an attempted coup, and that's what made Napoleon do it.
Yes, it was partly
Godot
the
was able to
main.
suppress it, but yeah, Napoleon stepped in because he's a micromanaging arrogant asshole.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering, Napoleon personally killed the Holy Roman Empire. He ordered it to die.
Yeah. The next thing to note is that this is the start again, as mentioned, of German nationalism, and a lot of it's because the French Republic kind of, well, the revolutionary mobs of the French Republic had a very idea of what was France, and a lot of it said anything up to the Rhine.
Yeah, that's one problem. Other problem was that the French military, it took very dimly on if it gets insulted or assaulted lightly, like via protests or from people occasionally throwing rocks.
Yeah, they
If a young boy in a Spanish town throws a rock at a French soldier, the French soldier will drag him out and bayonet him in the streets. And anyone who tries to save this boy are also bayoneted.
Oof.
Also, the local priest might be bayoneted because he's clearly working with the Spanish guerrillas.
Now, everybody that says, "Well, that's how you stop that sort of thing," is a complete moron. This is why he had the guerrilla war happening in
99%
Spain.
moron. The only time it works is if you pull a complete 100% destruction of Minecraft. Like, you have to basically Delenda est it.
And even then,
And even then, everyone around you is going to want you dead.
yeah, you kind of ruin yourself for the future for that.
So it is a horrible idea. Hilariously, the best empire that ever managed shit was Sweden in a lot of ways.
The
Because
Swedish
other than
Empire is really weird.
well, the fun thing about Sweden as an empire is here's how it worked. You only had to know Swedish, like they protected and you had to pay some money. But other than that, you did whatever the fuck you wanted. If you needed to make a case towards the king, you needed to know how to speak Swedish. That was about it. And even then, the courts usually had a guy that was bilingual to help you.
Huh.
The first books in Estonian, Latvian, Lithuanian, no, not Lithuanian, Latvian, Estonian, and Finnish were due to Sweden's laws. Because they literally didn't give a shit. As long as you paid your taxes and, and joined the army, you were Swedish.
Huh.
And mind you, they recruited very heavily from these areas for the army.
Particularly the Finnish.
The Finnish especially. Which is part of the reason why the Finnish were more than happy to join the Russians.
Hilariously, Sweden abandoning this when they lost their empire is kind of why they were unable to get Norway on side.
Yeah.
Also, Norway had
Also,
more developed land magnet system, which kind of gave them their nationalism already.
the biggest one though is I kid you not, one king of Sweden just not liking Finland. Not Finland, not liking Norway. I'm not even kidding. He just didn't like it. So he was like, "You want to leave? Fine, go.
It's
Get out."
really funny because Sweden could have, with some not even that much effort, kept Norway if they wanted to.
Yeah, and they just went. He just went. No. I don't like how you speak. It makes my ears hurt, or something like really dumb like that. And I was just like,
Which is funny because if you actually,
oh man.
in the words of the native Scandinavians, they're pretty closely intelligible. I believe the difference is Danish sounds flat, so it sounds like Norwegian speaking with potatoes in their mouth. Swedish sounds like a singing drunk version of Norwegian with some made up words thrown into it. And Norwegian is hibbity jibbity prospector version of Danish. Where it sounds like Boomhauer from King of the Hill. Like they're just within intelligibility, but just different enough.
You're pissing off every single one of our Scandinavian listeners, all three of them.
Oh no, come on. I'm pretty sure they'll agree that the Danish accent is very flat compared to their brethren up north. Besides, it's not as bad as some of the American accents, like this horrible New England, New York accent.
Oh God!
God
please.
damn you, Italy! Why did you give this to us?
Why
did you make this?
back to the fantasy land of horrific French war crimes.
There is no fantasy, Luigi. Only pain. They'll take your medicine.
So one of their suggestions here is that the attack on German identity during this period became the fact that the German identity became very anti-French. Therefore, here's some ideas for how to set a game around the time when this is released and story hooks.
Is this the story hook? Oh, the story hooks. There we go.
So cat and mouse in partnership. So you're in a village and the French are pillaging.
Yeah, they do that.
And it ain't going too well. But the main thing is that the French agree that there's a banker, right? Banker goes, so we're gonna convince them to we're gonna submit. We're gonna make a feast in order to have the French occupied. But the reason why is because he's a changeling, and it's all he's gonna exploit the situation to get rid of his enemies. Okay. I guess
it's okay, but I think what might work more is if you factored in the other parts of the time period, like up to the springtime of nations.
Yeah.
So the wolf and the 7 young kids. The player's characters are young changelings under the guardianship of an older changeling in one of the many German coastal cities. These cities were often attacked because they allowed the French to exercise economic and territorial control even more than land occupied interior. Actually, it was the opposite. Usually the French attacked only because they would ignore the continental system and try to trade with the British.
That's part of why they attacked
More
Portugal.
than one port was burned down by French soldiers because some assholes allowed some Norwegian or Danish shippers, smugglers, to send stuff to the British. In fact, one of the reasons Russia fought in some of the coalitions, one of the ones, the 1812 one, which has Napoleon stomp up to Moscow and burn it, that was because Russia told France, "Go fuck yourself. I'm trading my timber and furs with Britain. You go fuck yourself. We're equals." And France's response is, "It is death you've chosen." And they kicked ass pretty hard, but they forget that Russia's huge. Oh, they kicked Russia's military's ass bad, but it doesn't matter. It's too much shit to eat. And then they started starving.
And then things got bad. And
especially since the commander of Russia, the generals of Russia at the time, the main general, he ignored the Tsar's demands that he fight a decisive battle. He went full guerrilla warfare on Napoleon's ass. Basically refusing to give a set battle so that he could preserve his forces and force him to continue to go after him.
Yeah. Anyway, let's just get through these because they're just commander. Like, oh, yeah. The wolf and the 7 young kids, which is I think what we're on here.
Yeah.
It's the basic fairy tale, but it's in setting.
Okay.
There's like 7 urchins, and I guess the NPC, French private.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of dull.
The juniper tree is semi-interesting.
It's based on an actual Grimm's fairy tale, which is why.
Yeah. So the mother dies of an illness, father buries her at the feet, remarries. But then what happens when the someone else dies mysteriously? And why are the birds twittering the same? What's going on? Why is the friend reappearing? They fucking died. What is happening? Which is the hedge and the fetch and all that.
One-armed dude. Who needs a decisive battle when you got the Russian winter? Ah, yes, Generals Winter and Mud.
The two only things keeping Russia as an intact nation through the modern industrialized age.
How embarrassing.
Oh, God.
Hansel and Gretel. Oh, I'm kind of getting annoyed because it's doing the Viking period thing.
Rumpelstiltskin, same fucking shit. Crimson Harvest.
Same fucking shit.
Same fucking shit. Move
So,
on.
here's my problem. It's doing the Viking thing where it's focusing specifically on Napoleonic era Germany. Don't get me wrong, that is interesting. There's a lot of times where Napoleon kicks ass, builds up a national estate, fucks over support he had there, and there's just kind of this decaying, falling apart of the old order. That's interesting, but honestly, I don't think it really does anything.
Yeah.
And it's focusing too hard on one specific period.
I mean, hell, what about other areas in the world? Like, I don't know,
Well, it's
the early
usually a
American
region,
frontier.
but Changeling on the American frontier could be interesting because, or alternatively, Demon on the frontier as you're trying to escape the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Wild West Demon. Come on, Tech. What do you think of Wild West Demon?
I can see it.
So yeah, what's to come? The world of Fae is changing rapidly because of the power of stories, and this change starts in Germany. And effectively, what happens is these stabilize the rules that changelings run by.
Yeah. And then we get into more of the actual, like, oh, hey, here's some actual setting stuff.
The
Yeah, so the
nature
story
of the
changes.
story changes. Here we go.
And so the reason why is that all these are really minor, but at the same time, it's a problem for everyone because you'd have to learn the rules, right? You'd
Basically,
have
the
to.
way that Fey magic works is you have to know the rules of the game before to actually play it. It'd be like if, like, let's say you set up a chessboard, right?
Yeah.
And then some asshole plays it like checkers, just randomly jumping them over their own pieces and shit.
Yeah.
Screaming, king me," when they get to the other side of the board.
Yeah, so it's a brief disruption, but it can be pretty profound because if all of a sudden all of your problems have gotten absolutely.
Like, if all of your chess games play like checkers, well, yeah, you have to adapt to the rules. And vice versa, if checkers suddenly became like chess or backgammon.
Oh God, not backgammon.
That's the only game I've literally I've looked at how the game's played. I still don't understand how it's played. It's like a classic board game, and I still have no frickin' clue on how it works. I'd probably understand the royal game of before backgammon. A Wild West demon, just a Wendigo with a fucking gun. Not really. Demons are different. They're basically half Matrix, half horrible robot abomination, Frankenstein monster things.
Yeah.
They make
The
that
next
you
one.
can make deals with cowboys though, so that you can get timeshares on their souls.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
Then there's
The
then
Great
there's
Escape.
the Great Escape, which is, well, because the rules have changed all of a sudden. So many changelings are coming out of the hedge because, well,
The Fae don't really know how the fuck to get them back. The stuff they usually don't work, and some of the hedge entrances and exits have changed.
yep, the hedge is shifting, the rules are shifting. Kind of, you're just kind of like, oh shit, like what do we do next? They're all getting out. Oh no.
Oh, and those contracts and pledges that Fae abide by? Yes, a lot of them ain't worth shit no more.
Yep.
So that could be interesting. Like the flood of changelings just shitting up the freeholds. The heroes of the story. There are people trying to storm into Arcadia. Good fucking luck, pal.
Well, they're planning on a jailbreak. And on one hand, incredibly dangerous.
And
On the other
ballsy.
hand, but on the other hand, ballsy. And if it works out, well, there you go. You've just gotten a lot of allies out all at once, which is pretty big.
So they go into details about how Grimm's fairy tales actually were controversial when released because they were aimed at children. And it was due to a variety of things. There was, actual sex, children out of wedlocks, and because of that, it was considered somewhat
Kind of a
racy.
little racy. Yeah. By our standards, we're like, well, that's not that bad.
I mean, currently there are people trying to argue it's okay to talk to children about how how all the sex works at the age of 5. So
Yeah, and there's also people that say we shouldn't mention any of this ever.
Huh?
So there's all this shit. But in any case, the major thing is that there's some lost that are championing like these non-censored these censored stories in order to try to slow down the spread of the changes to the outlook in the hedge.
Because it allows them to play the game a bit longer.
Yes.
And then there's areas of Germany where they just, because they're not as important, they've just not gotten the book yet, so the rules are still the same.
Right.
They go into detail that the two places that have most changed are Berlin and Hamburg.
Which isn't a surprise. Those are both very, very fast-growing cities in this era. Hamburg, because it's becoming the primary entry port to the New World from the German territories.
And Berlin because of the rise of Prussia, which was a fairly recent thing.
Yes, last 100 years or so.
Yeah, like the Prussia of the early 1700s was a fairly sleepy German, almost a city. It's more of a large town.
We kind of went over the rise of Prussia in another review of ours, Berlin by Night.
Oh yeah, the one where a guy literally creates both world wars because how dare some guy tell me
because he's
my
angry
painting
at
sucks.
some guy in France. Yeah.
And they still keep doing that shit to this day.
Yep. Any case, the
Good,
next thing.
excellent decision to try to insert current year police brutality in Brazil in your Hunter game, World of Darkness.
Slow clap. And in any case, though, what comes up next is the what do you call it? Right. The whole thing with the revolution, which is true. The medieval walls are coming down. All this is sort of kind of ending. And so we get the freeholds across Germany start getting into revolutions because the court structures are breaking down.
Well, because a lot of the states of Germany are gone now. Like the horrifying nightmare patchwork of the Holy Roman Empire, it kind of still exists, but not really anymore. Yeah, the Congress of Vienna redrew a bunch of German statelets, but you should see the old Holy Roman Empire maps. There were thousands of little independent duchies.
Yeah. Then we get into the rural areas where it's a little
It's starting to change, and that's a big thing. Changelings stuck out there. They're in great shape because guess what? The changing rules means that they can escape that shithole.
Yeah.
Make it to the cities or towns where it's a lot better and you don't have to worry about huntsmen.
But it's also that a lot of the story changes have already affected that region already because so many of those stories are set in the Black Forest.
Yeah, so the Black Forest area becomes a very, like the Visa 101.
Yeah, it becomes a bit nuts. Like, there's random ass gates opening. There's these just hedge beasts going all around places,
Literal
hitting people up.
hillbilly changelings that have that because of they know the rules the best because they've from there. They're from there. Yeah, they now rule the free. They now rule the freehold.
Less than that, but more that this story permits for changes there, but they can stay longer. Like things from outside of reality can get in there longer than they should be, which goes pretty badly when you think about that. The
I'm
next
just
bit of it is that,
envisioning the tooth fairy from Hellboy.
yeah. Then you've got
Actually,
the
if you ever watched Hellboy: The Golden Army, Randall, that's not a bad
Yeah.
depiction of Changeling the Lost.
Yeah.
Hellboy and the Golden Army is pretty accurate, actually.
then of course there's a bunch of
I
changelings
think I've
hanging out.
seen it, but I was drunk at the time.
Honestly, I think that's the best way to see Hellboy and the Golden Army. Maybe not completely smash, but you know.
Well,
Yeah, you take a couple glasses, you got a good buzz. Watch Hellboy and the Golden Army.
yeah.
The
The
Robber's
main
Den.
thing, the main thing though, and I kind of like this, is that there's a bunch of changelings out in the Black Forest that are just pretending to be these fairy book monsters in order to scare travelers to rob them.
That's cute.
That's kind of great. Some say that they're even eating them and all that, and it's just like, oh,
No, they're just fucking with them.
they might just be fucking with them, which is
Oh, that could be a great campaign.
that could be a really fun campaign to run, or for if you're doing something in this area, just to do with it. It'd be fun.
I know it's a different story, but I'm just envisioning some asshole ogre just crawling from a giant tree, doing the Jack and the Beanstalk giant shtick, just to fuck
What are
with
you
them.
doing in my forest?
No, I smell the blood of German men. I'ma eat them and grind their bones into me bread.
Yeah. There's also there's groups that are looking at this as a way to prepare children to escape the Fae.
Oh, also,
That's the whole
one-armed
purpose of
dude.
these.
Demons here are not spirit terminators that'll wishmaster your ass. Demons here are more okay. So there's this great big gigantic god machine. It's the Francis E. Deck computer gangster communist god,
Yeah.
which has its insane Frankenstein plans. You are the pieces of the machine that have fucked up and realized, what the fuck am I doing? And you are essentially playing the Matrix with the God Machine. And your currency is usually identities, which you can either create yourself, fabricating, or you could just timeshare someone's soul, which means you just steal their essential life and live it as your own.
Or aspects of their life at least.
Yep, and also some other things you can do are you could play it. You could be a Chuck E. Cheese. If you want to play a demon that literally is just disguised as a Chuck E.
Part
Cheese, you
time,
totally could.
I'm a gas station part time. Yeah, you can do that.
Half the time a gas station, half the time like some college professor. No, a third of the time a college professor, and the remaining sixth of the time a house cat. Totally
Perfectly
fair.
viable. Demons, though I wonder what kind of deal a house cat would make with a demon. Like infinite tuna?
The house cat's deal would be they're always warm.
Ooh, that would be a good one for a house cat. I could see that. The sun's always on the right spot.
So bits of God machine code machinery that accidentally fell. Okay, so the gangster computer God machine has these, the agents from the Matrix. Imagine that, but like made out of wires, human bones, the blood of elephants, and like ivory clockwork gear. It looks like the robots from Virus. Like they're fucking creepy.
At least going by the book fluff, you could, I mean, in your own setting or take on it, you could do whatever.
Yeah, you can have them just be eldritch angels, like fallen angel looking things. Be not
Or
afraid.
reptilians.
You
And
could.
the God Machine is the UFO conquest.
Fun bit about that
plan.
is there's actual stats for reptilians in one of the books for Demon. They're literally just God Machine mistakes that want to be left alone and occasionally get seen by people.
At least going by the lore in the
By
book.
going by the lore, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
you
you
could.
could
harmless.
you could totally run a David Icke campaign using
Yes, you
Demon.
could.
Yeah.
Your rogue reptilians.
Because they're called angels because they do what they do is they run what's called the infrastructure in your server node network for the God Machine, as well as the key components like power supply, all these other things. Demons are those that have essentially gotten an error and have either questioned or thought, and they fall because of this. Because while they are capable of thought and some independence, it's the moment they question which causes them to fall, because that takes them beyond the bound. And demons can kind of do a variety of things. Some of them want to join back. Some of them just want to tear down everything. Some of them are just in it for the fucking profit. It's really up to you to how to play. In fact, there's a setting where a bunch of demons gather together to make a bunch of fake Soviet bureaus that Stalin has to take a hatchet to.
Yeah, that's in one of the companion books to Dark Eras, which I quite enjoyed that setting because it's just the master's tools have now turned against him, which I mean, demons attempting to hijack the early Soviet Union to create hell on Earth.
That's also
aka
a pretty
place
good.
without
That's
God
also a
machine
pretty
influence.
good. God damn it! That's also a pretty good hunter campaign.
Oh, it is. Yes, you are playing
the
KGB
NKVD
agents
fighting actual demons or reptilians or whatever.
So, okay, here's an idea. Here's literally what could be a session. You are a bunch of KGB guys. Like there's Yuri, there's Ivan, there's Yakov, and you're going into a building to arrest a suspicious member of a bureau who's been accused of Trotskyite thought. The building itself comes to life to fight you.
because it's a demon.
Because, yeah, that bureaucrat, yeah, that's one of his identities. The other identity is the bureau building itself. Which is now, like, you know that movie Monster House? Yeah, that's an actual thing that can happen.
Oh god, I'm just imagining playing like some Lysenko-esque crank.
Well,
It's
no,
like,
it gets even
this
more nuts.
proves that this is a hive of reactionary thought. The strength of their warped reactionary psychotronics has disfigured the very building itself.
You could totally have a hunter conspiracy that uses ape men as disposable assets, yes.
Comrades, rally your proletarian spirits to engage in spiritual warfare against the
You're
bourgeois.
joking, but they can. That could actually be a hunter compact that Stalin creates.
It's so fucking stupid. I love it.
It's glorious.
Well, welcome to Hunter. It's it can be pretty wild.
One-armed dude. Some of them want to be plugged back in, so to speak. They seem more fucked up than they're. No, it's because the thing is, you could fall despite totally still being believing in the God Machine's plan and mission, which is
and your objective is to rejoin the God Machine.
Like, because the thing is, its plan is inscrutable because you're just part of a whole. You don't really know what it's trying to do. Is it trying to perfect the universe? But it kind of can't since it's flawed. Maybe that's the problem. You think that it's flawed and you're trying to fix it. That's an actual ideology that they have. Or is it out to end the universe? You don't know. You were just part of a whole and you don't know anymore.
Your job was to dig graves for people that didn't exist.
That's an actual job you could have as a demon, as an angel.
Yes. Yeah, as an angel, that might have been your job, was to dig graves for people who didn't exist, which then magically filled up. All this other shit, like it's
another job could be as an angel. You buy a bunch of tenements and then you just slowly demolish them and create an amusement park for some reason.
Yeah, your job is literally to be a real estate developer as an angel. Nobody knows why.
There is a plan to what the God Machine does, but it has no human logic to it.
Yes. Anyway, back to Changeling.
I'm sorry. This is one of the weaknesses of the changing the law settings in Dark Eras. This is the only thing I will ding this book for. I don't find them as interesting as a whole compared to most of them.
Yeah. But yes, so we already talked about like the preparations and training idea, where they're spreading. There's some changelings are trying to spread these books as far as possible in order to create a world where the Fae cannot abduct children.
Because the Fae are very well known for doing this. Because
Yes,
very commonly, especially in Celtic legends, that's one of the first things they do.
is steal children. So their thought is that if we spread these fairy tales
Not just in
around,
Celtic, but like in Norse and North Germanic mythology.
yeah,
Yes.
the idea is though if we spread this around as fast as possible and as far as possible, we can turn
It'll
this
fry their
into
rules just long enough for them to not be able to get away with this shit anymore.
yes, or at least to make children less vulnerable, because they'll know how to escape it now.
Because
Uh,
the Fae have to
I'm-
follow the rules. Sorry.
I'm
Yes.
just imagining a To Catch a Predator, but with Fae.
Oh God.
Well, the problem is, at the moment Chris Hansen sits in the seat, he is then turned into an orangutan that can only scream in melee as he's forced to sort hats.
Yeah. That's the problem. But yes, fear and learning. So
Fae
like
don't understand. Fae do not understand right and wrong, for they do not know what it is.
that's the thing. Like a lot of the Grimm's fairy tales might actually bring back flashbacks to your Durants you really don't want, because it's like, oh yeah, I remember when a guy turned into a wolf and ate someone. Yeah, that was horrific and traumatizing. Or,
Yeah,
you
because
know,
it nods to the werewolf myth. Because the Grimm brothers, they didn't just pick up fairy tales.
or how they you got abducted, which is a wolf vored you into fairyland or some shit like that. Because the Fae are gonna do shit like that to you. They're awful fucking creatures, and they burst into your reality for 5 minutes as a giant wolf, eat you, and then take you back to fairyland with them inside their stomach as you're screaming.
And
What
then
the
you're
fuck?
yes, and then you're vomited out to do something as mundane as coloring napkins.
Yes, and now you are a napkin polisher. Not color napkins, polish them. How do you polish paper? They don't fucking care. Just polish the paper polisher.
And guess what? It actually works. You somehow manage to make paper shiny.
And they're like, good job. Now here's the next paper. And so on and so forth, or whatever else.
Make this paper pitch black.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts.
Because
So,
reality doesn't mean shit. Reality is nothing. In Arcadia, nothing is real. All is nothing. Everything is all.
yeah, then there's ideas that are
Physics? What's
spreading.
that?
Right? So, what we did here is we took a fairy tale and we made it even more grimdark.
More like,
you know the fairy tale about the weird little goblin that lives by the bridge, and he'll just kind of randomly kidnap children. Well, we changed it so that he has to answer you have to answer 3 questions he asks you, and then if you answer 3, he lets you go. But if you don't answer all 3, he turns you into a bird and then does horrible things to you. And that actually will change how the little goblin creature works. Like, instead of just kidnapping children across the bridge, you now have to answer 3 questions. But the thing is, Fae don't play fair. So they will ask horseshit questions if they want. Like, unsolvable
Right,
ones.
which is then why you need to have the no cheating clause in the legend.
But the problem is, once you set it, it's hard to change it. Because the Fae, they already are forced to
Yeah.
work both new rules. You try to change the rules, they consider that cheating.
Well, see, that's why you got a rules lawyer.
yes,
The last
basically.
time they got a rules lawyer, he was locked in a sanitarium, just muttering about codfish for the rest of his life.
Yeah, in any case, but it's also that they're talking about how the ideas of Grimm's fairy tales, where clever minds and good character can triumph over the Fae, makes it so that, like, yeah, why are we listening to this guy who's a noble that was abducted and just didn't do shit? Why are we listening to this guy? Well, because he's a noble. But why? Why does that matter? Look like in the book, like half the tales, it just shows that doesn't fucking matter. Why are we listening to some fop
Like
with a?
half the time, horrible monsters like witches and wolves are just defeated by people being smart. Like, you know that wolf that could blow houses down and eat people and eat pigs, like, or eat
Yeah,
people?
they
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
build a brick house. Be smart.
yeah,
Or be smarter and build a gun.
that too. But the point being that there's a bunch of experiments happening with, oh, excuse me, with freeholds. So they're trying to do some interesting stuff. Like, what about multi-city freeholds? Could that work? What about democracies? What about, hold on, this one's actually kind of nuts. What if we adopt a rule and a story based around all this, like a court of the clever man, the court of, the wicked witch, all this sort of
Because
stuff?
originally the courts were determined by seasons.
Not necessarily. Courts have always been about concepts and making contracts with those concepts. But what if we're able to get an idea of a concept that's new and contracted early enough that we have an advantage over it?
Like you could make a court of the traveler, which is
Exactly.
based actually. If you're wondering why the traveler idea works, during the German revival period, there's also a reinterest in paganism. And
Yeah.
one of the most noted figures in German pagan myths is Odin, the chief god, because
Yep.
he was also a
Who?
wandering god. He often disguised
Yes.
himself as an old man. In fact, actually, Gandalf from Lord of the Rings was based on Odin.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just
But
this
yes.
wandering dude, and you could just steal that as your own. You're like, yeah, we're the court of the wandering gray man.
So yes, the idea then is that Kessel has decided that they're going to all change their names to characters in Grimm's fairy tales.
Which is like how early Bolsheviks usually wrote their own pen names.
Yes.
Or like how the Paraguay leader changed his name to El Supremo.
Yeah. The El Presidente. Yes, so they go with like all this sort of stuff so that they have these names and all that going on. It's an interesting experiment, and people decided they'd try it, and it seems to have worked okay because they're now all dressed as them, so they're like literally living a fairy tale.
They're living
as a court.
It's the court of LARPing.
Basically, yes.
Oh, how
And
embarrassing!
And they've decided that if there needs to be more than one character, you can just be a different aspect of that character, and then use your names and identities of anyone they're dealing with, any one of your kind, or with the gentry of the huntsman. That way, it's harder for them to know who's who to take away.
Also from Nunya, the goblin also gives you a tedious lecture about living in a van down by the river. You could.
Oh no. Yes, but in any case, it seems to be working okay. It's not really reducing the amount of huntsman attacks, but the people there are pretty happy.
The changelings there are happy. It's working well-ish.
It's
It's
not
working the same.
Yeah, it wasn't a negative change. I mean, for an experiment this ambitious,
The fact it works is impressive.
Yeah, the fact that this hasn't caused complete insanity, though it's caused some changelings in mortal life to go like, I'm gonna actually try to pretend to be this character in real life too, see if that does anything. And those people are being looked at very, very concerned, with a lot of concern by the local populace, like, oh, they lost their mind. Oh no.
Oh, poor stupid people.
For stupid person. Yeah. Which, as pointed out in the Promethean book that we read, being institutionalized isn't the worst case for a supernatural being in the world of darkness.
There was actually a Frankenstein's monster that loved being stuck in an insane asylum.
He did, because he's like, it's all alchemy, guys. Look, listen, they have to go here, they have to take these things, and they fix themselves. Guys, this is it. This is what we need to do to become human. It's just like, this is fucking insane, but,
it gets
hey.
funnier, too. Because of his actions, those people stuck in the asylum got worse.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I love Promethean because it's just like the game of unintended consequences.
When some of these tropes have power to them, yeah, like there's a reason why you can fuck up a changeling with cold iron.
Yeah, like the whole point of this is that the tropes do have some power over the Fae.
And this is why I think is another reason why Beast the Primordial never fucking worked, because Changeling the Lost did this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like this thing. Changeling is about dreams and changing them, and also about the nature of a story and how it changes and affects certain things. Because the ultimate way to kill one of the gentry is to basically kill them as a story. It's difficult, but you can sort of do it.
Well, also there's the ticking clock of you're slowly shredding apart humanity.
Yeah.
So Christian as a changeling of the freehold of names?
No.
No.
No. Flat out no.
No.
We
I
don't.
mean, I don't know. I could see Chris as some sort of horrible abominate, like something really fucked up that fell out of the hedge.
It's already cringe enough that Charlie Manson's a wolf blood kin. Let's not have Christian be a supernatural creature.
I mean, it could be worse. It could be
Until he's
Vampire Himmler.
dead.
You forgot about that one, Randall. You forgot about that one, Adam.
What?
Vampire Himmler.
No, I remember. I just choose to forget every second after you say something like that.
Anti-tribute, by the way. Oh, anyway.
He still
So
doesn't hold a candle to the great and mighty Kevin.
The Great and Mighty Kevin's still fun, yes. But in any case, the fact of the matter is that this is a bit of a different era for the Lost. And so they kind of specify what's going on. Social class is very important to characters. Building your stuff is that the Industrial Revolution is still kind of out of like full swing. There's still a lot of other ideas, and also
well, this is because they're assholes and they're focusing purely on the Napoleonic period, which I think is a detriment to this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it should have been 1800 to 1850. This is a fuck up on their part, in my opinion.
Yes, they go. The next one they do after this one definitely goes more into an era.
Yeah, you're bound by social class. Yeah, who gives a shit? We know this.
We know this.
Especially since, it's funny, this is the first of the books that do that talk about that. I think a couple of them specify, like, specific cultural differences, though.
Yes, they specify.
Kind of feels lame.
Yeah, this is kind of weak. Like, in general, this one's kind of weak.
Female characters also present a challenge. Well, no fucking shit.
They also mention, though, that widows are very common, very easy to play a widow.
Well, yeah, because remember, it's specifically
just after Napoleon, yeah.
Well, no, it's not even after Napoleon. They're specifically going from like 1804 to 1820 or whatever. Like, they're doing that thing again that I didn't like about the Viking Age one.
The Viking Age one was set after a specific battle.
I'll give this, at least there's a few years that you can play around here.
Yeah, and also allegiances.
Yeah, none yet. No one wants to remember Vampire Himmler. Himmler's dead. My new best friend is Kevin Wetsworth, the great and mighty Kevin. And his cat, Mr. Smurples.
Mr. Smurples. I was about to say his cat. What's his cat name again? Because it's really good.
Mr. Smurples.
Mr. Smurples.
The apes make a mockery of Mr. Smurples. Sorry. Hunter, the parenting is really good. Anyway, back to something not as good.
Back to this. So the freehold of Golden Creation is the city of Mannerheim, which, okay, there's a bunch of different new courts that have came out at this time. So there's a court of sciences and a court of the arts.
Hey, that's fair. And actually, that could be interesting.
This is actually quite interesting as the idea for a college town pair of courts. So the court of sciences is a court for inventors, watchmakers, physicians, apothecaries, brewers, gunsmiths, that sort of thing.
No, and there's a competition where you either create a work of art or you try to create a new invention.
Yes, and on top of all that, that is actually how they do that. Every participant in what is known as a golden contest must be competed in. So every participant must work on an art or music, develop or attempt to prove a new scientific theory, or build something new. Previous winners and the heads of both courts judge this contest and must first swear an oath to only choose the finest creations. The winner becomes the freehold's ruler for the next half year, and their court is the dominant court. An individual from the losing court, whose work was judged the best in that court, becomes the ruler of the less dominant court. And they do this once every equinox.
Or if none of the creations are sufficiently good enough to qualify as finest, then the bulwark is broken and no one rules until the next equinox, which is neat.
Now, you don't want that bulwark to break. You really don't.
It's bad, but yes.
It is quite neat. So
but it's also open to normals, by the way.
It's open. More accurately, yeah.
Aside
It's
from the
open
ones
and
that require weird things like the first laugh of a baby, or
yeah.
the dreams of a sleeping cat.
This is actually really clever. I do like this aspect of it, where you're bringing in mortals to take a look at what you're doing, so you can subtly harvest glamour and also acquire resources with the freehold, because you can sell like good paintings to people and
Yeah,
all
it's
of that.
clever. Oh no, 1800 science phrenology. Here we go.
Ah, yes, the science of why black people are evil.
Because look, this one black man has a small dent in the middle of his skull. There's or alternatively, the art of shoving a balloon up your nostril to try to fix your face.
Yeah, they did that. With more with like why black people are evil is like the weird obsession with scientific racism at this time.
Oh,
Like,
that's an
yeah,
audio clip.
no, like there was some really like into this and into the early 1900s is like these desperate attempts to justify with science the superiority of the white man, which just gets
Yeah,
into don't clip
I
that. I
think my
swear.
favorite. I think my
I'm
favorite
flipping
is the
it.
invention. No, it was the use of the Stanford Binet test, the IQ test, and
Yeah,
intentionally framing it so that those who were not raised in Europe ate as much shit as humanly possible because there were concepts
yeah,
that you'd only understand if you were in an industrialized society.
yeah. Like,
The original IQ tests, I believe you lost as much as 10 or 20 points if you were like a country boy. So you didn't have access to things like the telegraph or the trolley
yeah, like what the
or the
fuck is this talking
gaslight.
about? Yeah.
And it was even worse if you were
so
Umbubu
so
from Botswana. Like you lived
so
in a
movie Bob
fucking
designed
village.
it.
You lived in a village
It
farming barley and goats. What the
this,
fuck is a train?
this sounds like movie Bob designed it. This
Yeah.
will prove the inferiorities of the country
A lot of
peasant.
scientists were out there. Did you know that the whole reason we have cornflakes is a similar insane logic? The guy was like, "I have found the ultimate food to prevent masturbation."
Yeah,
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 Kellogg was the part of a weird religious cult, actually.
Oh no, it's
yeah.
even funnier. Kellogg actually stole the original recipe from an even crazier guy from the same cult.
Yeah, there is a lot of just really fucking
Graham
stupid.
crackers also were the same thing. In fact, actually, I think
Yeah,
the guy who invented Joshua Graham, he rejected the formula because he considered it tasting too good. Because that would give pleasure. Therefore, invite lust, invite sin.
Yeah.
He wanted to create
yeah,
the least appetizing, like he wanted to create the gray paste that you ate and you feel nothing from.
yeah. Jesus. In any case, the tension
By the way,
with
these same
the
crazies are the reasons we have carbonated beverages too. By the way,
yeah, which hey,
also
again,
tying
ghosts in your
races to
blood.
Atlantis, Lemuria, etc.
Lemuria is one of my favorite crazy scientific
Mhm.
theories
No, my
because
favorite
he's
scientific theory comes from a guy who claims Jews come from another dimension in space.
look, spirit
Yeah,
science. I'm talking like legitimate scientific research here.
yeah.
Lemuria is actually a really brilliant way that someone came up with to try to figure out a way how do lemur fossils get here to here when we don't know about plate tectonics.
It was
And
a giant land bridge that blew
yeah,
up from national natural gas
That's
deposits.
one of them.
Science.
There's another
it,
one that I love called the Great Expansion Theory, where the Earth is like a fucking balloon that's been growing.
yeah, that's one of them. But I think that the Lemuria theory is really great for that reason because it's just a very specific, very
None,
focused.
Nunya, welcome to the court of Kellogg. Here's your complimentary circumcision and yogurt enema.
Oh no!
I can actually see
Oh
it.
no!
It's beautiful.
Oh god, that'd be the worst court to join as a changeling. Jesus.
Your glamour would fall apart
Oh
quickly.
no, yeah, it would. You'd just be like, oh god, I can't get any enjoyment out of anything.
Don't forget
No.
Lamarck's
No.
theory.
You harvest your glamour by making people just as miserable as you are. Your glamour emotion is misery.
You're like an insurance agent.
You're like an emotional vampire.
You could actually play
No,
a
an
fae
insurance
as an
agent.
insurance agent. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a. Oh, you could make a bastard character. Like,
You could.
I'm just
Or they work at the
envisioning
DMV.
Diogenes the Changeling.
yes.
Diogenes the Changeling, because of Lamarck's theory of evolution, just reminds me of the how to define man. I think it was Plato came up with the description
Yeah,
to
like
define
featherless
man.
biped.
It was
And also-
a featherless. No, it was a
It was a
furless
featherless
biped.
It was a featherless biped, and of course everybody's like, "Oh, that's really clever. That's really smart, Plato." And so here comes Diogenes,
Buck
because he
naked.
hears this. He hears this, and he's just like, "Oh, this motherfucker. He's completely wrong."
So he shows up
So
buck fucking naked.
Buck fucking
He's
naked,
never,
because that's
he's
just
never,
how I
he
do.
never showers, by the way. Keep this in mind.
Yeah.
He only bathes when it rains. So he is stinking to high heaven,
And he
and
has
he's
a
naked
completely
and
plucked
jerking
chicken
off.
holding, and in the other hand, he's holding a plucked chicken, squawking and screeching in agony and fear, and he throws it into the fucking schoolroom and
And
screams,
just screams,
"Behold, man!"
"Behold, Plato, I have found you, a man!" And just like, and of course everyone writes this down, because this is one of those things that, like, if this happened to you in a lecture,
Like
and
imagine,
this is imagine
you
in
were
a
in a
college
lecture,
course, like imagine you're in a college
a
course about,
biology
I don't know,
course.
like, yeah, not even biology, like about, I don't care, like anything at all, and someone just walks
A
into the room
naked
buck
man,
ass
a
naked,
balding naked
screaming
man.
and throws something at the professor, you would remember that.
Yeah.
You would remember that moment for the rest of your life.
I think that would be one of my most cherished memories.
It probably would be, because it's just so fucking bizarre.
My favorite is when Alexander's like, "I shall grant you anything. Give me back my sunlight."
Get out of my fucking sunlight, bitch.
He used to have a bowl. He gave it up when he saw a child drink from a puddle with his hands.
Don't need that anymore. It's like, this is a fucking waste. His request for burial was to be thrown outside the city wall
To be
for
eaten
dogs
alive to be eaten
to
as
be
a
eaten by
corpse.
dogs. And people are like, but they're gonna eat you, and it's like, yeah,
That's
then just
the
give me a
point.
stick. Yeah, like, give me a stick then, if you're so worried. I'll just beat them off. It's like, but that doesn't work. That's the point, you fucking morons.
Why waste your time putting my rotting corpse into a fucking room?
The man is a legend for a reason.
Not as much as I
Anyway.
think his name is Epithamus, who to prove he had divine blood, did a backflip into a fucking active volcano. It's the most glorious suicide I've ever seen ever. He did a fucking flip into a volcano.
That isn't the dumbest Greek and Greek like philosopher.
Is it the guy who walked into a court with a knife and he gutted himself with his own knife?
No. It is the guy. It is the funniest one I've heard is that Pythagoras of the Pythagorean theorem created a cult around himself.
He did?
Yes, he did. As a reincarnation of a god. So he then faked his own death and held his own funeral in order to resurrect himself.
The problem is he died before he could do it.
I can't remember if he could die before if he could do it, but I think he did actually pull this off, which is incredibly silly. Because you don't expect the guy that you best know for, like, a squared plus b squared equals c squared to be running a fucking weird sex cult at all.
And fake his own death just to gain power.
Yes. This is what ancient Greek philosophers and mathematicians and stuff were like. People are like, well, college professors are so weird, and like, just like, why? It's like, motherfucker, they have been like this for eternity. Just this weird ass people.
We've always been in clown world.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
Wait, it's always been clown world? Honk honk. Always has been.
Anyway, next one.
The Court of Sciences.
The Court of Sciences. They go through a bunch of these other stuff, like their trappings and their approach and their titles.
They have mentors, apprentices. It's kind of the guild system.
Yeah. And then contracts. They have affinity for tail spinning, emotion, and busting and perfection. Okay, that's fine.
Also, the Court of Sciences is threatening to explode because the different fields are starting to get into pissing matches with each other.
Which sounds like
Basically,
every college I've ever been to ever.
basically your mechanical scientists, like your engineers, your tinkerers, inventors, are getting pissy at the naturalists, like your chemists or your biologists. The ones who work with things, or the ones who build, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then there's like the really theoretical guys that no one pays
And they're
attention to
all
that sit
getting
in the
into a
corner.
pissing match with each other.
Yeah, like the mathematicians. Good God, the mathematicians. Never, ever, ever, and I mean this, ever get into an argument with a mathematician.
The
It
only
is
the
an
only thing smugger than a mathematician is an engineer who believes they are correct with their solution.
What's worse is an engineer who knows they are in fact correct, and you still haven't realized it yet. That's the smuggest.
Yeah. So, yep, this is the Court of Sciences. I actually, like I said, while I don't find this book super giga interesting, I like the Freehold of Golden Creation. I like this one a lot. I can see this one actually surviving to modern day. And it's because it gives you a decent idea on how their system works, and it gives you a variety of details on what your titles and what your abilities are, which gives you things like just a single pip gives you an extra dot of resource. You get Goblin Vow, which is pretty useful because goblins allow you to get access to a variety of things you otherwise wouldn't.
Goblin contracts usually have a bad cost, but they offer a very powerful reward.
They're like
They're also usually
Faustian
very
bargains.
limited. This is the sort of thing where it's like, I need a baby's laughter to do this.
But you'll always succeed.
But yeah.
Courtiers can complete actions in 1/8 the time normally required, so you could just hyperspeed.
Hyperspeed through your inventions.
You could accidentally invent cold fusion.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's
the
Court
ones
of
that are
Arts,
really
which is,
good.
oh yeah, let's do those.
Which is personal approach related to how you fulfill the ideas and stories of the court, which makes you more resistant to huntsmen. And then a courtier requiring only 3 successes to get an exceptional success on either crafts or sciences
which
roll.
is big.
Which is really good for accumulating experience. Is very good for accumulating just additional effects on what you're doing.
Because on average, you need 5 to do a critical.
You need 5 successes for an exceptional success. This reduces that threshold by 2, which is huge because your dice pools usually are no bigger than 10 dice.
Yeah,
So you can reasonably get 3 successes on 10 dice on average.
And on top of that, you can invent shit that otherwise might not have been invented. Like, if you ever wanted to make a battery to make a frog's leg,
a super science mobile.
I want to make I want to make an auto carriage that is powered by frog's legs that are forcibly marching me via the battery on the back.
You can do that. That's what this is for. This is that weird super science concept.
Yes.
Come on, don't you like centipede frog leg car?
I do. It's really creepy though. Then there's the Court of Arts, which is the smaller one, and
well,
is now.
It depends. It depends on who wins the tournaments.
Yeah.
And it's all the arts. So if you're a writer, that counts. If you're a painter or sculptor, that counts. If you're a theater kid, that counts.
If you're a debater, that counts.
Yeah.
But this is the soft sciences, somewhat. I guess you could not really soft scientists, but this is like the, you know how like the classical education was kind of like you'd have your hard sort of like education on like the physical world, and then your education on like rhetoric and history and things like that. That's this sort of aspect of it, the liberal arts, basically.
Yep. And one of the things they've recently done is they've allowed popular songs, folklore, and everything to actually be included as a form of competition now.
Yes, because it used to be that they weren't considered high enough art to be put there. So this means that there's a lot more members of the Court of Arts now, because there was people in the Courts of Sciences who were like, well, I want to be doing some of this stuff, but I'm more of an artsy person than a sciencey person, but they won't let me into their club. And now they're in that club.
A hydraulic-powered French press to squeeze out every last ounce of thaumaturgical energy from that eye of Newton. Yeah, you can totally do that. You basically come up with your own wacky early steam, early electric ideas that you might see in the 1800s, like in your own dreams, and you can create it. Do you want to build a proto bicycle that allows you to fly like a helicopter? Fuck yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Then you get the Court of the Arts are also kind of, they used to have an apprenticeship system. Now it doesn't matter.
It's
You
more
can
like
kind
art groups, like
yeah.
art communes. Actually, it's similar to nowadays because there are these community art spaces where you just like there's a main guy who runs the building and pays for the group's resources and or the building, and you just kind
Mhm.
of chip in together. It's like a cooperative art co-op.
Yeah. That's kind of what court is becoming more now in this era, which is an interesting one.
The
But before
problem
the change,
is because they lost their apprenticeship rights and they're doing this art commune, they're literally starving artists now.
the poor and infirm members of the court kind of can't do much now, which the members of the motley are supposed to you don't really owe anyone else in the court anything except that you're part of the same court, and as long as you're not an apprentice and master, you don't owe each other anything. So there you go, buddy. No free
So,
lunch.
and this is actually representing the change in this court, much like how Fey society is changing too. Because originally, these were the snooty, you know, those asshole art critics who will shit on like a King Kane painting for being kitsch, and then buy who's that one asshole who does those awful pill drawings where it's like photoshopped and he doesn't even make it. He leases it out to other people and just puts his name on it.
No clue.
But basically, they were that type of art critic who would shit on people who commercialized art, but then would praise honest garbage, like what feels like no one would do it, like a scam. Like I flopped a toilet on its side and called it art, that sort of thing.
It's the trash man from Always Sunny.
Well, you get what I mean. Basically, they were
Yeah,
that type of
I get
art
what you're
critic.
talking about.
Now,
So
while they're hated by the rich because they've become so bohemian and mundane. Yeah, the common folk fucking love them.
yeah, so I think that then this is when we get into the strongest bit of this book, which is the stuff of stories, which is the little details for stuff to
Oh
throw
no, they
in.
get some. They give you the art mantles
Oh
abilities.
right, you're right. Their mantle. You gain a dot of crafts, expression, and performance, which is actually pretty good.
It's not a bad
Um,
replacement for a resource. Like resources are nice, but getting a dot of these can be the difference between life and death
that's
sometimes.
it's also a great way to save experience.
Oh yeah.
This costs less experience than raising any of those skills yourself, especially at higher levels.
You also get a dot of the Goblin Vow merit related to their chosen art at 2. At
Not
3, you gain
surprised.
2
Two
dots of
dots of the
fame.
fame.
4, you gain
Then
personal approach. Yep.
and this is actually a really good one too. So you get a willpower point to gain a rote action quality. So basically, a rote action quality means there's no
You just shit it out.
uh
No failure
yeah,
worry.
no failure. You cannot fail it. You basically are just rolling for that exceptional success. No penalties. Just straight up roll it.
And
The
yeah, the court politics, the court of arts' rapid change into what they are now is causing Mannheim to get kind of unstable because
yeah.
the court of
It,
sciences are looking at them like, what the fuck?
what the fuck's happening?
And it's
Fuck you
not
doing?
helped that some of the younger members of the court of science, because it's strict and based on the guild system and as the old boring fogies, a lot of them are going over to the art because hey, you just have to write a story, man.
Yeah.
You get your glamour that way. Even if your story's not great, the people applauding you, that gives you glamour. That gives you glamour. You feel great. You feel, which was what matters, man. You don't want to just shred the last part of your humanity, jump into the hedge, and just turn people into hats. So anyway, the stuff of stories, as you mentioned. New trifles.
Yeah. These are actually the interesting ones,
Ooh, ooh,
which
this
is the
is
blue tobacco.
interesting.
Yeah. If someone's a hob, hobgoblin, and the hobgoblin will bring you and do you a little bit of a thing. Like, it can't directly harm another intelligent being, but it will do relatively reasonable requests. Like, I want you to fix all these shoes, or I want you to go and tie up all the horses of this farmer, or whatever else. Which, that's kind of cool.
Here's a stupid one that I could see doing. Can you steal all the yolks from the eggs of this chicken farm?
Yes, like
Leaving
all
just
like
the
those little
whites. Leaving
little
just the
little tricks.
whites.
Yeah, like little tricks like that, which I think is quite good.
Just weird stuff like that. Or could you have their outhouse sing ballet at them?
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Like, this is a very
This is fun if you just want to prank and fuck with people. Or if you need help at that moment. And even then, it's not like completely harmless. You could, if you ask it to murder every noble's entire crop of horses, he'll do it.
yeah. As long as it's not directly harmful to another intelligent being, there you go.
Magic beans. It's the fucking beanstalk.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that actually makes me happy.
Like, as I said, this is the strongest section of this, which is what you've wanted this entire time. You can use a beanstalk in
I
order to
didn't
cross
even know I
between
wanted it,
realms.
but now I do.
And it will grow, so you can go to Gentry, to Arcadia, to Underworld, to Twilight, Shadow, or Astral Realms. Both sides of the beanstalk are completely invisible to anyone who did not help plant and tend the bean. Anyone who goes to the gateway, if they find it, but only the reliable way to find the gateway is to see someone come through it. So this means that if you cut it, it will instantly close the gateway. And though it can support the weight of climbers, it's
It's
considerably
kind of
softer
hard
than
to
wood.
climb, yeah.
So it's kind of easy to cut too. It only lasts about 1 month, so then the gateway closes, which is still a really useful little tool.
The water of life, which found in wells in the hedge, they're either concealed or guarded. There's also a few springs in Pool and Arcadia. Water of life is a universal cure-all. Drinking it instantly cures any disease, including both lethal disease like the consumption and congenital problems. So if you got the red cough, the tuberculosis, you can drink this, which is pretty nice.
Yeah. And then there's wishing rings.
Which is similar to the lesser genie in the original story for Aladdin.
Yes. And where it can use it to say, can use it to slay one human, huntsman, fetchman, changeling, or permanently dispel one ghost of spirit. It can send one of the gentry back to Arcadia, but cannot kill them. It cannot be used to acquire a token or any sort of permanent enchantment, and it can only be used once. Anyone who finds it once can never find another. So they may be able to buy one.
It's still useful for a one-time thing if you really need help.
Yeah, it can provide the user with wealth to live a year, frugally up for up to 5, give you an object the size of a castle. That's all really useful.
Oh, from Nunya, I remember some 25 years ago, some guy was tinning his own feces, and eventually they started exploding in the collections of the fools who bought them at auction. No, that's art. It's similar to that
that's
one.
art.
There's actually this one Japanese artist. His whole shtick is he does that and then blows up his own fucking paintings.
Yeah, like it's a comment.
In the moment.
Yeah, it's a comment on how everything is transitionary, and also I just really like blowing shit up. So fuck you.
Yeah.
like if you're an artist and you do that, I'm like that's
why, despite thinking Jackson Pollock's art kind of runs the gamut, and some of it's just completely garbage. If you argue his art is when he's dancing around the painting, throwing the paint on it, I could actually say, yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, it's as much that as it is the actual painting, honestly.
I'm just envisioning Jackson Pollock NFTs, and it's the worst thing ever.
Oh god, thank god NFTs are just dying.
No, they're double down. The crypto bros are doubling down though. They're gonna keep doubling down until they lose it all.
Cryptocurrency and its consequences have been a disaster for mankind.
Bitcoin was a mistake. Anyway.
Oh god. Anyway, so then we got some fun tokens like a enchanted locket, which allows you to talk to another person as long as you've got their hair.
Close friend, yeah. It's pretty nice.
But however, the communication is only one way.
Still nice though.
Still very useful. The next one is Gilded Raiment, which allows you to change what you're wearing to basically anything else.
Oh no, there's also the catch. The user has the option of letting the hair's owner pay the price.
Yeah. If neither pays glamour to activate the locket, then the conversation is finished. The hair automatically slips free, crumbles to dust, and the person sending the next message is rendered mute until the next sunrise. Basically, the catch is that how you do it without paying glamour on your own. So if they don't have glamour, it doesn't work out really well. It wouldn't work.
There's the gilded remit. Buddhist thing, make elaborate sand art and wipe it away. Yeah, that's an actual style. It's with rock gardening, often sand gardening. It's a type
Yeah.
of Zen garden.
Yes, and then the Gilded Raiment again, which
There's
is
also a
that.
type of pottery which you make the pot and then you fucking smash it into shit and back and then you fix it. That's an
Yeah.
actual style of pottery.
Yeah, it is. So the clothing can provide a bonus. It can be repaired by soaking in the wearer's blood.
It can
But
change
the
costume.
downside is that, yeah, to change, it does you 1 automatic point of lethal damage, but you don't bleed.
It also
Because
just instantly falls apart if it touches iron.
Yeah. Which, I mean, fair enough.
Pathstones. These are just a small cloth bag. It contains rocks. And you can toss the stone, it lands in the direction. It's the Sonic rings from the movie, basically, only before this.
Yeah.
It helps you get away from danger.
Anyone who can see a mask through a mask, however, can make a way to lead you to the stones. So, and also the stones, the path they create are obvious to anyone who looks carefully, even mortals.
Yep. 7 League boots.
These are actually kind of cool. These allow you
appear. That's pretty sweet.
in another location. However, the problem is that you walk with a limp, so you can't move as fast after using them, and you have to roll an activation roll.
If you succeed, you're pretty close to where you want to go. If you fail, you're just somewhere within 25 miles of the location.
And if you botched, you're somewhere you don't want to be, which might strand you deep into the hedge. And you can only use these
or
once a day.
alternatively, you get teleported into Napoleon's tent and he's doing like rails of coke.
Yeah. Then there's a couple of contracts.
I know
The
coke
contracts
wasn't a thing yet, but yeah.
Yeah. The contracts of provisional aid, which is to help a child through a psychotic breakdown. Okay, this is getting dark.
Well, remember, this is the Grimm fairy tales where like Hansel and Gretel have to murder a witch.
Yeah.
Or Red
Changeling
Riding Hood
considered
has
a
to be
comfort
eaten and
object.
survive a wolf's stomach.
Which is to help this is the way of helping a child through their teddy bear, and then one of physical warmth. And basically, this is about like just help the children.
Yeah.
And then we get to the
you get the horrible part, the dramatic failure where their worldview shatters and they lose a dot of integrity and get broken, feud, madness, or obsession.
Oh no. That's all kind of nasty.
Yeah. The contract of real and false self. Let's move on to something a little less sad. They can see through the comfort objects and may interact with their child. Oh, that's even creepier.
I know, right?
The changeling has watched the child
watching them sleep through a full night. Yeah, pretty creepy. Pretty creepy.
Heartwarming or comfort. It provides the child with physical. Children, we can
touch their hair. Let's touch your hair. The contract of transference. The child feels satiated and can go longer without eating. After the child does eat, the changeling can make a request of him. If it would not trigger a breaking point, the child feels he should complete it without protest. Oh no. Oh no.
Hey Randall, remember your gnomes shoving children into the factory of progress? These are the things you use. These are the things you use to keep them sane.
That's Uncle Touchy's power there too. Oh no.
Uncle Touchy.
Yeah, you know, the weird gnome that lives under your bed and tells you to do really, really weird things, and then touches you
Objective
at night.
idealism. By providing
Oh
companionship
God,
to
are
a
you reading the
child,
Hegel?
the changeling can add or weird to the child's next role to resist the formation of a persistent mental health condition. If the child's role is successful, the changeling may add 1 die to their next attempt to resist the drop in clarity or to resist the formation of mental health condition. Must designate which he intends to use when this contract is used as a mental benefit that affects the broken fugue, madness, or obsession.
Changeling knows
Instant,
child.
based on a long-term relationship with the child.
Oh no.
The catch. They knows the name of that the child is given to the comfort object has made a small physical change to the object.
Oh God, this is really creepy.
Contract of the good. They bond emotionally with the child.
Oh no. Oh God.
The Grims. Let's move on. I think that
Call me your princess
this
one more
section
time.
was
That's
fun, but you know, in a horrible way.
a Grim because they carry a book with them, carries a tool to illuminate manuscript. This is a different kind of durance and yeah, basically a different kind of durance and different kind of kith and seeming. I think it would be actually
they
a
hold the
seething.
book.
Seeming. So they hold the book. They're basically, the point being that they are words. They are a story that the hedge has been told about the truth of a fae. When they play a role in a story, they are seen in that role. This is a very temporary sort of seeming, I think, where it's really only active in this era.
Background: before their durance, they were a bland and uncreative sort. By the way.
Their dreams were small, they're pragmatic way. They didn't have any time for fancy stories or whatever else. Most commonly, they ended up walking to the hedge just completely blindly, fingers in their ears, and the way out was through reenacting a fairy tale.
Yeah. Theoretically, nothing. Dull and uninteresting people rarely end up in the hedge, and as a result, Grimm are fairly rare. When they do show up, they can be easily mistaken for other seemings that focus on their kith.
They may not know anything special or unique about the situation. Fairy tales never faded away in popularity, and not really. So there's an argument that if Grimm once were, there likely always will be. Can Grimm symbol in a head to your website? No,
Oh,
we don't know yet.
Christ. Remember the backrooms?
Oh no.
If you think about it, the backrooms internet myth is a lot like the hedge.
Yeah, but yeah, their blessing is generally.
You're not thinking about it.
I'm not going to bother. I don't want to.
You don't want to think about the
I don't want to
backrooms?
think about it. Don't want to think about it. So the clarity of the story is that they, as long as they play the role, they can regain a point of clarity for free.
They're the ones that have to LARP.
Yes. Which is actually kind of cool. They literally regain their sanity by LARPing.
And the
However,
curse, so it is written.
This is the thing. They need to have a role. If they don't, the huntsman can find them easier and drag them back to
Well, without
Arcadia.
the role, they also suffer horrible depression.
Yeah. She suffers the reverse of the actual quality. That is to say, reroll all successful dice.
Only dice that succeed twice
recount, which is awful. Yeah, roll is to reroll all unsuccessful dice to see if you get more successes, which is pretty damn good.
Companions of the Resigned.
Which is, I befriend those without friendship. Oh God, this is the
No,
pedophile
this is Uncle
one.
Bad Touch. Look at. Oh my God,
Look at this man's mustache. God.
Why did you offer to model for this?
They're you're modeling for a historical picture.
And then they edit this child in front of him. Oh, I feel bad for you, dude. Like, I don't think you knew.
God.
I don't think he knew.
I don't either.
So anyway, the bad touches, as I'm gonna call them from now on.
Changelings are joined this organization and have been approached by companions themselves following. Oh God, they're groomers. Prerequisites: Weird 3, Empathy 3, Expression 2, Stealth 2.
So changelings who've joined these companions Tend to have been approached by companion. Oh god.
Oh no. I understand that they're meant to be like someone that just kind of helps you to get over the bridge into.
This has
Yeah,
Lolita vibes, and I hate it.
this does,
Yeah.
and I hate it.
Yeah.
Oh, Imsit. Going along with the backrooms concept, the Fae could make a changeling in SCP. Yeah, they totally could.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah, the companion.
They're mean. Oh god,
Fuck.
you want a creepier?
Let's go for it.
Okay. The informal nature of the companions' assembly contributes to the lack of uniform or standard of dress. However, there are notable changes in the means of their members. In close proximity, other humans and supernatural creatures alike can feel warmth emanating from their skin, and it's softer to touch. They appear physically approachable to those nearby, especially those in distress, and receive a +1 to influence in social roles involving manipulation, persuasion, expression, or empathy, and in social maneuvering. To a child, the companion may appear shorter and closer to their age. To an adult, she may appear softer and more dependable.
I can feel my skin crawl.
No.
Oh, they also get a +3
Hide
bonus.
and go seek.
They get a +3 bonus to stealth rolls when called attention to, as long as they have interacted with their human charge within last day. Oh god, they are Uncle Bad Touch.
So I think we figured out what's this thing called? No, what are changeling groups called again?
There's a couple different kinds. These are the orders, which are sort of like the prestige classes.
Okay, so Freddy Krueger would be in this order.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
they're
getting Freddy Krueger vibes from this.
on
and I hate
one
it.
hand they're trying to do imaginary friend of the group. On the other hand, that's really fucking creepy.
Also, Prometheans did it better.
Yeah.
There's a for those wondering, one of the Promethean ideas they had as an off-ball kind of because there's a type of Promethean that are called one-offs, extempore.
Extempore, which are unique ideas that there's no real way to
It's
create them.
once in a million freak accident, basically.
Yeah, is
Like-
that an imaginary friend comes to life.
Like, let's say, here's an example. Pompeii happens. Promethean might have been made from literally the ash of a volcano.
Yep.
And it has the fury of the fucking Mount Vesuvius himself. Or you could be an imaginary friend, like the cool sister that you always wanted but never had, and you forgot about them, but they don't go away. They're still there in a dreamless body.
The one that I liked in that Promethean book was the fact that person, that when they were created, their first instinct was to actually immediately help that kid, and then they realized, wait a minute, I shouldn't exist, and then had like a mental breakdown.
Because wouldn't you?
But at the same time, they're like, I know all these things because I know everything about dinosaurs because they wanted me to. And I know how to speak so many languages and do all these math things and all that because the kid wanted someone to teach them math. But I don't know what I am anymore because and I can't go back into their life because I don't exist. Like, legally speaking, I don't exist. In like 30 years they're going to be wondering what the hell happened. And yeah, that's why Promethean's kind of a great game, because you can do some really off the wall.
So the order of the story here is okay. I'll be honest, I don't like the art assets. This has strong 5th edition World of Darkness vibes.
Yeah, this has strong. We just photoshopped.
I consider this bad form. Look, I know a lot of and Chronicle of Darkness players like to LARP. The problem is, I don't ever want you to touch a right or right for a scenario.
Yeah. This one is actually.
I really don't like their decision to do that. That's so dumb.
Yeah, I actually really like this one order concept though.
Well, I mean, compared to Bad Touch, anything would be better.
No, because the idea is that they're basically it's a group of changelings that heard about the Grimm's fairy tales and decided to get together to go beat the shit out of like the huntsman and things like that. Like, wait, we can do this.
Oh yeah,
Let's go for it.
Oh yeah. Like, we don't really have to go into too much detail. These are the guys that are orchestrating the jailbreak.
Yeah, these are like the guys that are pursuing the jailbreak. These are the guys that are trying to deal with like the privateers, and they're actually relatively easy to join. Wits 3, Investigation 1, Subterfuge 2. Not that hard. They're supposed to be like tricksters.
Yeah,
And
they rely on trickery to play around,
yeah,
and they often legitimately make up stories.
yeah, which that's kind of fun.
Okay, that's a little more fun, especially compared
They
to
also
Bad
must
Dutch.
wear they must also wear a badge of their accomplishments. So like someone who saved 3 children from a burning building will get a sash with embroidered the faces of 3 smiling children, and I gained I saved these people, kind of like, and their names or stuff like that. And it depends on how boastful or modest they are, which is still fun.
And the background are mostly comprised of Darklings, Fairest, and Wizened, but all seemings can have been found here.
Combat kits are slightly less common, stealthier and more common. But you can any of them can join. You just have to be clever.
Yep, and the order is both new and inherently non-hierarchical. Yeah, ultimately this one kind of gets destroyed by the gentry, from what I can tell.
It either gets destroyed by the gentry or just kind of falls out of fashion. It
Mainly
happens.
because the rules have solidified, so you can't really do the bullshittery that they were doing as easily.
Yeah, I mean, if you still could, that's still pretty solid. They whenever a trickster is faced with a penalty, they can focus on their luck and reflexively spend 1 glamour and remove that penalty. They cannot benefit from bonuses above their normal dice pool on such a roll, but the rolls to their unpenalized dice pool, which means that, for example, you might have some bonuses, but you've got a lot more disadvantages, so you can spend a point of glamour and just negate the playing field.
Interesting plot twist. Instead of Faye emulating characters from the Grimm stories, characters already exist and they manipulated the Grimm brothers to increase their own power and influence.
Yeah, and
Not unsurprising as an idea.
yeah,
Mechanical
the
effects of
next
different Fae rules. Unless both regions have undergone story changes, characters who move from one city, town, village, or Germany to another usually move to the area where Fae rules work a bit differently. Different German states operate under slightly different rules. All attempts to make pledges, use contracts, navigate the hedge, or make any rolls to learn or understand anything about the local Fae, Gentry, or Hunchman suffer a -1 penalty.
-1 die basically out of your pool.
Yep. In addition, any rolls that involve 2 different locations at the same time, -2.
And then it takes some time, but you can acclimatize yourself to the local rules.
It's just a minor kind of change in quality of life.
Yeah.
I think mechanically it's dull, but like I said, if you think through it, if you do a bit of theater of the mind insanity, what was it? About a while back, I mentioned the idea of, yeah, oh yeah, this type of fairy gets scared off by chickens, but
by
in this
by
other area
chickens, and now it's
gets killed
ducks.
by ducks.
So
No,
yeah, then
no,
they talk about
the quack of a duck is fatal, rather than the crow of the
yeah,
rooster's just startling it.
yeah. They basically go in about how the fact is that this is a weird time for changelings, and there's a lot of hedge beasts and stuff that are sneaking out into the real world, and it's
Because
just
the
like, oh
Black
god,
Forest is open, and there were a lot of
yeah.
them hiding in there.
Then there's also the fact is that while you guys are only suffering like maybe a -3 while the stories are all changing and it's a fucking nightmare, gentry are fucking exploding when they come in to try to come in. For example, there's several huntsmen chasing you. One of them tries to activate a power, immediate glitches, it obliterates itself and one of its companions. And now suddenly it's like, oh, it was 3 on like 5, now it's 5 on 1. At which point you can just that huntsman's probably like, oh shit.
They go into detail about the whole plotting and using the French Revolution, which, again, in my opinion, kind of limits it slightly.
Yeah, it does.
It's not as bad as it's not as bad as the Viking one.
No, it's not,
I
because that
don't
one's at
give a
the
shit about
tail end of
Brian
the era.
Boru dying.
This one's actually like at the start of, you could call, the era of revolutions in Germany.
I'm sorry, Irish YouTubers who watch us. I don't care about Brian Boru.
We don't care. We're sorry.
Brian Boru is dead, and he's currently playing poker with Francisco Franco.
Yes. In any case, Here's how the story shifts happens. In a region where much of the populace has been buying and reading Grimm's fairy tales for at least 6 months, the local flavor rules eventually start to shift to fit better with these stories. Once started, the change always begins on a new moon and ends in the following new moon. And it's most obvious in the hedge, which means you get a -3 die penalty to navigation in the hedge. Pledges may spontaneously break. You may form a contract and just not. So the GM gets a thing to fuck with you. All pledging contracts, even then if they're working, suffer a -3 penalty for everyone affecting them. All these penalties also affect the mortal region, not just the hedge in Arcadia.
It fucks everyone. So the GM also can eat shit on these, by the way.
Yeah, basically is what they basically say is that everyone is suffering this. This includes the Fae. For the Fae, it's arguably worse.
Oh, by the way, yeah, have a good night, Nunya. We'll go on a little bit further. I don't know how much longer we're in.
We're basically almost over.
It's an interesting
Just like 2 more
concept where the
pages.
rules are changing a bit. I think the problem is, I think it would have done better if they kind of went into some of the legend differences or give like examples.
Yeah.
But
Then they
that's
go
fine.
into but then they go into like how do you actually run Changeling in this time period?
Yeah, where
Which is
are
that
you?
where they talk about so how do you pretend to be a freehold that it's all getting together? Because this has always been a problem for the Lost.
Especially
Because there's
since in
some such
Germany,
diverse backgrounds. Yes.
well, also in Germany, there's not a lot of big cities.
Yes. There's a lot of small ones.
And Berlin and Hamburg are growing pretty quickly, but
But yeah. So this means that there's like other problems of like cover stories and changelings being active a lot can really make people curious about what's going on. So they kind of also talk about
and unless you're in the big cities, which ain't often, you're in a German town, like a few thousand people. And unless you're quiet about it, they're going to be like, what are these weirdos doing gathering over there?
yeah. They also
Why
talk
is
about
that one
how
guy dressed like a fucking puppet?
yeah. Why is there a guy dressed as a jester? But yes, they go over on the other bit where they talk about how close people are in this era and noticing what's going on with their neighbors and all that and local gossip. But they also then talk about the fact that as you want to, you could be a group of lost doing like Grimm's fairy tale style antics on the local mortals.
Yeah, like if you want to just hide in the Black Forest and fuck with them by transforming into monsters, go right ahead.
Or if you want to be more heroic, maybe. You've got a lot of powers to do that.
I'm just envisioning someone playing the huntsman from Red Riding Hood, but as Axe Cop going, I'll cut your head off!
Yeah, or more like the brownies and stuff like that, where you're just doing things for people that they don't know who does it.
Although
They
if they
suggest as an
reward you,
idea.
although if they reward you, you have to leave, which makes you scream.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Grimm's influence sounds like John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. Do you read Sutter Kane? You're not wrong.
Yeah. Then they talk about how you do the Grimm's fairy tales and the spirit. Anyway, what's the other creatures it doing in this time? Vampires are sticking in the cities. They don't give a shit.
Yeah, they're pretty much just hanging out in the big cities. And in the smaller towns, there's a couple.
Yeah, werewolves basically controlled the Black Forest.
If you're wondering, as a slight nod, it's a much better take than Berlin by Night, where the vampires just kind of they're separated by the massive amount of fucking werewolves in Germany.
Yeah.
Because in Germany, there's a fuckload of werewolves.
Mages, also like vampires, are really worried about the werewolves. I'm gonna be serious here. New World of Darkness Second Edition, the werewolves are some of the most terrifying combatants for almost everything but maybe Sin Eaters and Prometheans, and that's only because they can tank dying.
Yeah, and here's the thing: there's a lot of werewolves in northern Germany, and not just all of Germany.
Yeah, they just there's a lot of spirits, there's a lot of fun stuff like that, and it's going pretty great. Frankenstein's are not that common, which
Although
Prometheans
the first
would come out soon. Yes,
actually,
there
given
is a
that they're
time
obsessed
period
with
setting.
Napoleon, no, given that this is Napoleon's kind of setting, if you do what I suggest and you go up to 1850 in terms of your variations, you could unironically deal with the original of the Frankenstein lineage, Adam.
Yes, they actually have that in the companion book of that, The Year Without a Summer.
Oh.
where they talk about that new creation of a lineage and what that does.
Sin Eaters are pretty common because this is the aftermath of one of the
A
greatest European
war,
wars.
and also a lot of people just dying.
Especially since if you go further out, the Year Without a Summer, and also the Springtime of Nations. Oh, also, what people forget is that the last 4 years of the 1840s, worst famine, like 2.5 years of famine.
A lot of people fled the country.
Yeah, if you're wondering, basically a lot of crops failed due to, I think it was either a blight or just a poor weather, which damaged the soil. Especially in France. And demons do thrive, especially in Germany, since guess what? All that broken power means that they can kind of co-opt the god machine parts.
Yeah,
So,
hunters are very
yeah, they're
common,
doing well.
which makes sense. There's this
There's a
nightly
lot of
order of the
werewolves.
Knights
What the
Ruprecht.
fuck would you expect?
So they're wandering the countryside, shoving silver into people's hands to see if they react.
Yeah, the order of the Knights Ruprecht.
That's actually pretty fun. And then beasts are a source of
Fuck
disproportionate
beasts. They don't
fascination,
exist.
but fuck beasts.
They don't exist.
Yeah.
You don't belong
And that's
in this
kind
world.
of this. I'd rate this as decent, and I wouldn't give it any better
No,
or any
before we
worse.
do, let's show off the picture of the next page. They're doing the Photoshop pictures, which is stupid. Stop doing that. It's awful. Stop. Don't do that. But we're going to have something
It's a flavorful
amazing.
one. It's a flavorful Photoshop. I actually kind of like it.
It's a Photoshop that works, but stop doing it.
That's kind of Mummy's thing, though.
It's Mummy time. It's Mummy next time, which we'll not do because we're going to record something. If the coin is nice, it'll be the world of Cinnabar, which is insane. If the coin's cruel, we have to do more chalt. But anyway, to properly rate the book, because you said decent, yeah?
Yeah, I really can't rate it bad because it's not bad. It is not offensively bad. I can't call it good because it really isn't good. So, decent.
I would say decent too. And here's why. It suffers somewhat from the Viking problem. Not as bad because it's throughout the whole rise and fall of Napoleon and revolutionary France. That is interesting. It is an interesting time period. And there's more than enough to talk about and do during this period. I think it would do better if it stretched to the 1850s, but I know why I understand. They wanted to keep it focused to a degree.
Yeah, because
The
like
setting
say
is relatively interesting, especially if you include the other supernaturals, because, and that's the problem. Changeling just got beaten again by the other supernatural.
yeah, it's
The order of Saint Ruprecht having to fight the Great Hunt, do the Great Hunt against the fucking hordes of werewolves.
yeah, that's a pretty baller campaign. You're just all gonna fucking die though.
Like, you have to ally with other spooks and kooks to deal with that shit.
Yeah,
Maybe you have to team up with the first Frankenstein's monster to save fucking Europe.
You have to save the village, Frankenstein.
Even though we'll kill you afterwards. For this, the enemy of our enemy is our friend.
Even though you're a fucking monstrosity freak with sewn together from a bunch of different corpses,
compared
brought to life by
these
unnatural
werewolves,
means, and your eyes are fucked up, you're better than the werewolves. We did it, Patrick. We saved the city. As you burn it all down.
And you see Adam Frankenstein just like rampaging through the village, going, "How dare you treat me like this after I've saved you?
Yeah,
All that I've done, and you treat me as this. No community gives me succor. I'm only given torment." And the hunters are like fucking drinking beer, celebrating.
Yeah, it's it's Oktoberfest, yeah. We get to schnitzel.
You have the
and
original
schnitzel.
monster rampaging through the village after the villagers spite him after he saves them from the werewolves.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's the problem with Changeling, and that's why it is decent. Changeling's always, in my opinion, kind of beaten by the other supernaturals in some ways.
it really is. I like Changeling a lot because of what you can do with the ideas
There's
of bringing in all
creativity,
these.
especially
Yes.
I love the court of science and arts. I actually really think that'd be a fun
Yeah.
court if you're going to do a Changeling campaign. The
If you're gonna
problem
do a
is
Changeling campaign
they're
in like a
eternal
college
cycle.
town,
They're like the bass guitar of a
they're
band.
like the bass guitar of any good rock band. Like
You'll
you
hear
can
it,
throw a
but
Changeling into about any story and they'll work out pretty okay.
the problem
Like
is
if
though they're kind of overwhelmed by the lead guitarist and singer.
yeah, here's what I'd say with that. Like if you have a game where you're setting it in an era or you're setting it in modern day and you want to bring something a little weird to your table. Not too weird, but something a little weird that let's say you're running like a vampire game would be to have like the fact is that there's an
like
elder
this
that's
fun
beating
no like this funny little short guy, like short man,
yeah
who's like, I can help you with your problem in exchange for this.
yeah or it's a leech fingers. So it's basically he's an honorary vampire because he can drink blood through his fingers. And he's just kind of hanging out. And then he's like, yeah, I'll catch a cab tomorrow and I'll be out of the city. And you're like, why? What do you mean by that? You can go in the sunlight? Like, what's the deal?
Don't worry
Whatever.
about it. Just
Just don't go down that alley next week. And they're like, what are you talking about? Look, I know, I've seen your future, and then he's just gone from your campaign for whatever reason. Comes back later, whatever else, talks to you
you
about
went down
something.
that alley, didn't you?
Yeah, you went down that alley, didn't you?
Sorry you lost your friend there.
Yeah, you lost Dave there. Yeah, about that. I got Dave's last breath here.
In fact, I actually have Dave's last breath and some of his own blood.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you don't pay me for this, we're gonna have a problem. Or he arranged Dave's death so that he could harvest his last breath, and you're like, what the fuck sort of vampire is it? Like, that's one of the fun things you can do with changelings, is that because they're so versatile, they're better than beasts, actually, I'd say, for crossovers.
They do exactly what Beast wanted to do.
Yes.
And they're more friendly to the setting, in my opinion, than Deviants.
Yes, Deviants are fun. Don't get me wrong. I love Deviants.
Playing RoboCop would be fun, but playing
a
gnome
also
that throws children into the living furnace that constantly screams in Celtic.
For blood sacrifice. Yes, also fun. Because yeah, like Changeling is a game where if you've got a group that's on the same page, like you're just going to do something really just
it'll
a little silly,
go amazing, or it'll be a train wreck.
Yeah, like let's say that you're a Changeling group and your job is to get this old train running. So you can go into the hedge to go and like ram it into the asshole of Satan or whatever. That could be a fun campaign because you've got to assemble like all these like weird objects into a functioning train.
Oh, the spoiler's dead. I have an idea. Let's just get a bunch of fish lungs.
Yeah, and you have to like
what?
You have to rig something like that together. Like that could be really fun.
It's fish lungs powered by the giggles of children. This is an actual thing you could do.
Yeah, like see what I mean? Like there's a lot of stuff you could do with that it's both really charming and kind of creepy. Like
yeah.
Its boilers are fed by the teeth of deer. So the coin shall decide our unfortunate recording fate, I think.
All right, flip it.
Okay, decide what should be Cinnabar and what should be Chalt.
If you're doing Cinnabar, I might participate. I wanted to read that book for a while.
Head will be Cinnabar, tails will be Chalt.
You got it. Tails. You said tails would be Chalt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Oh boy.
Well, I'm not going to that one then.
So next week,
more cat milk.
We're going to go inside the purple worm who plays The Sims guts to fight wizards in its fart bag.
Wouldn't you rather be playing Beast?
I'd rather crawl into my own grave.
Beast or Chult, pick one.
I'd rather crawl into my own grave. I wish I stopped.
Good night,
existing.
folks.
Good night.
Night.